If you are a brand and if you are somebody that speaks like a brand, shut the page. There's no point of it.
Customers always educate themselves to be ahead of the brand. There's always a lag of few years, but consumers always catch on.
You see these great directors like a Christopher Nolan, you make him do social media, I'm certain he will suck, no question about it. But he's a great creative mind.
A marketer, I think, needs to have negotiation and a storytelling skill sets. Because until you don't have those storytelling, you would get pinned down every single day in your rooms.
This is the least number of writers we have had in the team ever in our agency.
I feel like social doesn't need media money. Like, it needs very little media money. It has to have inbuilt distribution in the idea.
One person said, I have consumed 12 hours of your content in the last 3 days. So I was like, wow.
Where do you work?
Yeah.
There was a post of yours which went viral on LinkedIn about how you should not get an agency.
Firstly, I didn't say never get an agency. I said for social, there are better ways to do it eternally today versus to get agencies.
Why? Thanks for making time and doing this.
Yes.
I think Harneet has flown all the way down from Delhi just for this, is what I like to believe, even though it's not. But I before we start off, just quickly want to take 5-10 minutes and cover each of your origin stories.
So I started working at the age of 19 or 20. Tried to start up when I was in college, and it was very naive. And post-college, I got into an agency, started copywriting.
What is the startup?
It was about solving for mental health through using art therapy. And I think just doing it on an everyday basis versus in therapy, because when you do grow up, some systems get set in your brain, and to undo those systems, only habits can help. So I think
Right.
that was the idea. It was very.
What year was this?
2017.
Oh, okay.
No, 2015, 2015,
yeah,
16.
very early.
Yeah, long time ago,
Yeah.
and too early for any of this. But yeah, that's what I did. Very naive. Moved out of, stopped it, obviously. Got a job at Dentsu Web Chutney. Started as a copywriter because I was like, oh, I love to write. And I realized that I loved to write for myself, not for brands. It was the most grueling and annoying job ever. And I realized I wasn't great at it either. So I quickly moved to the business side of the same job. I moved to client servicing. I did that for 2 years. Super fun. Did IKEA, Swiggy, Quicker. Really, really fun time. WeWork. It was great work. And then post that I moved out, and I moved out the day that the lockdown was announced. So without a job in my hand, with the plan that I would figure what I want to do essentially, started up again in the kids space. It was called Junior Champs. It was a kids preschool learning kit, and kids could learn it at home. It was a 9-month curriculum. We ran that for 2 years through the period of COVID, but I think it was a bit short-sighted because schools have their own curriculums, and once they opened up and parents were willing to send their children to school, things changed, obviously. And post which I got into Play Shifu, managed their global marketing for about a year and a half. I think we did like a bunch of. That was my first exposure, I would say, to Europe, US marketing in those countries, and a lot of retail in Southeast Asia. And post which I moved to HomeLane, and I've been there for about 2.5 years, and lead brand there.
Nice. Harneet?
I think I was really fascinated even in my student days by A, consumer psychology, and B, how you can use technological devices to sell your things. And that is how I started reading more about marketing as a whole piece. and try to go deeper into understanding how actually consumers think, how they react, what kind of messages they feel, what kind of platforms they actually want to consume content on. So I was just reading it during even my student days, I would say. Lucky enough, I was a speaker at an organization, talking about all the things that I was learning. It was like a college thing, kind of set it up. And then there was an agency owner sitting in the audience, and he said, "Hey, are you interested in marketing? Why don't you join a marketing agency?" And I was like, "Okay, I want to do marketing. I found someone who is basically willing to take a shot at me, and let's do it." And I just joined like proper corporate marketing infrastructure in 2011. Now it has been like almost 14 years, and I have recently figured out that if you say 1.5 decade, it looks slightly better than saying 14 years. So, so I'm gonna use that. So it has been like 1.5 decades trying to do marketing. I see my job as honestly as lawyers, which is customers are my clients, and they have appointed me as their owner within the organization. And whereas in the organization is more like a judiciary system, which is saying, okay, I need KPIs, I need revenues, I need law and order to be maintained. But consumers are more like, hey, we need flexibility, we need discounts, we need this. So I think it's always like I treat myself as the owner of the customer, which is like I'll go for you, negotiate for you, I'll bring back the best from the organization back to you, where you would actually finally start loving our brand for which I'm working for. Some organization I've worked with is 1MG, Glance. Then I moved out of India to work with Aura, which was Southeast Asia based. And then currently I'm working with Mille Pharmacy, which is Italy based as their CMO. So yeah, I think I'm still a student, honestly. And probably in the next a decade or so, I'll finally be able to say I know what marketing is. But right now, I'm still
Always.
experiencing it.
Yeah, I think marketing is a at least 2-3 decade long learning journey.
100%, 100%. Yeah.
Right. Very interesting. So I have this theory that, to be a good marketer, you need a diversity of experience at the base, right? You need to like try a few things
Yeah.
before you actually believe deep down that you're now a marketer. So I think I've seen traces of that in both of you. I have something similar to, I played around doing a lot of things before I sort of figured, okay, this is what I like to do, and this is
Yeah.
stimulating enough to every day wake up and not having to motivate yourself to come into work. So that comes from that sort of initial experience of doing few things, failing, trying new things, and I think that just adds as a sort of a foundational layer. That's just been my take.
I also think a great place for someone to start with marketing is an agency, because that's the only place
Yeah.
where you'll really actually get to like do like 20 things and learn a little bit of everything.
Right.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah.
I my origin story in a way is I used to freelance.
Okay.
Because I stumbled into it. Someone said, "Hey, I heard from somewhere that you're good at managing social media. Can you manage my social media?" That's how it started. So I said, "Sure," and I was like, side me, I wanted some pocket money, and I did that. So when I was at the consulting firm, I wanted some side hustle, because I think this is 2014, 15, 16, and side hustles were like glorified on the internet. And I was young, I was in my early 20s. So I said, yeah, sure, let's try this. And I used to do it. What I felt back then was same. I resonate with you, which is I felt the learning in an agency would be a lot more, because you're solving for many, many operational and strategic, sometimes tactical problems for different set of clients' brands. So you learn faster. That was my theory. Then I went into the consulting firm and I started doing core business related things, vertical down. That was great. As an entrepreneur, I like it. I mean, I had those tendencies, but I felt from a marketing lens, I wasn't
Doing enough.
Right? I felt I still had, like, I would get done with work by 6 or 7, and I was in my 20s, and I was like, I want to work a little bit more. I would feel that way.
I want to create chaos in my life.
Yeah, exactly. But I just felt like my colleagues weren't looking at it in that sense. They were
Right.
more comfortable at that time, a different stage of life probably. Yeah, that's the reason. So when I started out, and even now, I feel if you want to consistently keep growing, I feel agencies still give you a great sort of avenue and forum for it. Like we keep talking about being a T-shaped market, or rather we did. back in the day, and now a little lesser with AI coming in. I think you can do a little bit more, I guess,
Yeah.
in terms of specialization. But we used to keep talking about becoming a T-shaped market, and I felt agencies were great for it because you could specialize into one and then keep growing, vertically on, horizontally on other things that you want to, in terms of new problems and things that you face. Do you guys agree with that? Do you guys disagree? You're on the other side today.
So I have a different point of view on that, and which I developed over time. So there are 4 P's of marketing which everyone talks about, like people, price, place, promotion, and then it got expanded to 7 P's, which is people, process, and physical evidence. Now every time my job is like basically to build marketing teams, to hire and all those stuff, and I keep interviewing people, and that gives me a slight bit of an itch when someone comes on an interview call, let's say, and says, oh, I know entire marketing. I'm like, okay, great, give me a pricing project you have worked on. They have never worked on pricing. Like, organizations don't allow
Marketers to work on
marketers to
pricing
work on
projects,
pricing.
except for like HULs of the world.
Exactly. Right. When have you worked on processes? An organization doesn't allow me processes. Okay. When have you worked on physical evidence? I'm sending a love letter in my delivery box. That's my physical evidence. So I think as marketers, we have reached a stage where it has narrowed down to such a low level, which I think was once really a broader piece.
Right.
And that attribution and data tracking and everything has completely narrowed down the role to, hey, I run ads, I send emails,
Right.
and you can sophisticatedly say I also do loyalty programs on top of it, right? But it has really narrowed down. But if you go back to where marketing was started, it was all about, let's say, creative. It was all about art. It was all about consumer. I always ask people in interviews, which is, when was the last time you built a consumer survey? They have never built a consumer survey. And okay, how do you know about your consumers? We get data from some teams, right? So I think I agree with what you are saying, which is a T-shaped marketer, but I want to take it to a slightly broader level, which is, man, marketing is 7 P's now, 4 for sure. Unless you have not worked on all of these 4 and 7 pieces, I definitely don't call myself as a marketer, because I always say I'm still studying. Because like all 7 pieces, until I don't have like 5 to 10 case studies down all of those pieces, man, we are still learning. So that is my take on it.
Fair.
Yeah. I think that for me, I would say the most important quality, especially if you're doing digital marketing, whether it's brand, social, doesn't matter what you're doing on the digital world, most important thing is, for me, firstly, you need to have depth in one thing, one single thing. Have depth in anything, that's fine. Like, Instagram, great. I don't know, ads really well, great. That's fully okay. But beyond that, you have to have the capacity. You have to have not done everything else. You just have to have the capacity to be able to experiment every day, especially given how quickly things are changing. If you're not, unfortunately, as marketers, if we're not always on, and if our ears and eyes are not always on the internet and open, I think it's incredibly difficult for you to thrive in an organization, whether it's a really well settled org or a startup. I think the job of a marketer is to always, you have to have the generalist gene in you with your specialist gene. You can't be just a specialist, and you have to be able to like get your hands dirty and be like, okay, I'll do this, I'll try this. That without that, I don't think you can be a marketer.
Right. So which of the two sides of the coin helps you do that better? Brand side or the agency side?
Agency.
To
Hands
begin
down.
with, agency, yeah.
Hands
I
down.
agree with it. Yeah.
I think even today, if I switched to an agency, I think for how dynamic it is and for how many brands that you will work on, you will really be able to build the generalist muscle.
Yeah, but there is one point I have in this, which is, over time, as you mature as a marketer, you also need to complete the loop of the conversation. So at agency side, but there are certain gaps which are, they don't get access to all the data. They are only given a certain mandate, and hence
Yeah.
the loop never completes.
Mm.
So I have met a lot of agency folks. We work with agencies, we work with you guys. So it's always like this pain point, which is okay. You have mandated me for ads. Yes, I know my CAC, I know my acquisition numbers, but I don't know if I'm acquiring the right users or the wrong users,
Yeah.
because I don't have retention data available to me.
Yeah.
So I think we both agree that we need to begin with an agency, because it finally gives you a chance to work on multiple brands, and you don't want to be confined to one industry or one brand, because it will stop your learning like immediately. But over time, you have to move to a brand side to complete that loop as a marketer, so that you really can see, okay, this is how finally the bottle moves.
Right.
Yeah.
Is that also something to do with culture? Because, see, again, like I said, I came from a consulting background. So for me, it was very default to ask business numbers to end in the first meeting. And there are different kinds of people that you deal with. I always felt when I worked with the founder, I got a lot of transparent answers, because maybe they looked at me as a founder and they felt they could relate. Whereas when you speak to marketing folk, then they don't know if it is in their purview to share that information or not. So they tend to sort of, like you said, there's a problem where not all information comes to you. And I've had different stages, different types of relationship with different brands in the last 7-8 years here. And I know I can resonate. There have been both instances. Some do not give you all the information. Some very openly give you everything. Like I've had brands share Nielsen reports with us. We would get product level data on a day-to-day basis. Some brands who would even make us part of the process from a growth marketing lens, because they don't have an evolved team at that point in time. So we would be like very, very deep into looking at numbers with them on a daily basis. So I've had different relationship. I think I feel a lot of it is down to the pre-existing notion ki what my agency is supposed to do for me, or what my partner is supposed to do for me. And as a function of which, then there is an unsaid rule that, where some marketing teams, their culture is we don't share information beyond a certain point. Some culture is that, oh, we'll share everything, and now let's see what they're able to do that back with us.
Yeah.
So that's what I feel it is, more or less.
I fully agree. I think in the past, when I worked with agencies, like with my other orgs, we've always sent just enough information, just enough for them to get the job done. But at HomeLane, I very quickly realized with my different agency partnerships that the more you gave them, they would. I'd like to start by saying that not everybody is capable of understanding that data, and that becomes a very big blocker.
True.
Like with you, maybe as a founder, is very you
Yeah.
understand and you have a consulting background. Someone on the client servicing team might not, but in general, right? And the job for you as a partner is not for you to look at them as get this done. The job for you as a partner is to treat them as an extension of your team. And if you coach them into looking at the data, they will look at data. They will look at closing the loop. And I think I've had like 1 or 2 agencies for the last 2 years that I've worked at HomeLane. And like today, they're an extension of the team. They get full context. They get full ROI report. They get full, okay, this is what happened with the lower funnel. This is exactly how we're supposed to look at it. And they get it. Today they get it. They didn't get it when we started,
Yeah.
but they get it today.
Yeah.
So I think it's also about that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. This also goes back to how you integrate both of them. And then there is a slight layer of it which goes back to the financial conversations.
Yeah.
Which is like, man, like if you want us to be part of your team, then it's gonna be bloating your cost as well, because I'm expecting my agency owner to give me a person who understands retention, who understands loyalty,
Yeah.
who understands like acquisition, who also understands product, who also understands maybe P&L, CM1, CM2, CM3, because like if I'm saying you to cut budgets, maybe it's because my CM3 is not making any sense, and hence I'm pinging you guys to cut money. But that guy is looking as you are cutting my budget, but I don't know, right? So I think it goes back to the financial conversations as well, which is, can we pay so much of money, any brand, where an agency is actually invested in you guys back? So I think it has to go with the culture, relation, and how you look at an agency. But today it's slightly dismantled for sure.
Right. Fair. No, I agree. In fact, I also think in today's landscape, what I've to face with the new workforce that's coming in is also that they also look at it from a slightly point to point scope of work. So if a marketer, that's my experience at least, on both brand and agency side, that they have defined set of hours, and in those set of hours they want to do what they can do and learn or contribute as much as possible. And then after that, I mean, obviously, it's also needed because work-life balance was taken for granted in agencies for a long period of time.
It is.
But I think it's flipped now completely, where I think the default expectation is I will do 9 hours, right? It's a sad reality of our field, which is in marketing. The more you do, more you learn. I look at it like driving, right? It's the early days when you're young and you're driving. You need to drive as much as
Yeah.
possible to actually learn how to become good at driving. There's a very interesting story, just deviating a little bit, which Ian Bishop recently spoke about during IPL. There's a kid, Vaibhav Suryavanshi, who hit 100, right? It was a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
So they were going back and tracking his upbringing or his say a sort of growth spurt to anybody of that age, probably in England. And they said Vaibhav Suryavanshi was playing 5,000 balls in the nets a day. So he would train for that many hours,
Yeah.
right? Versus a kid growing up in probably England took 1.5 months to get to that number, because it's just not looked at that you need to train that hard. So as a function, the growth spurt is like, significantly higher, right? So this is something that I think in marketing also is not spoken about, which is for someone to, for example, if you're at a CMO level and you get an agency partner, they're definitely, the person servicing you day-to-day basis is not at a CMO level, right? They're much
Yeah.
lower. But how do you get to a level where you're able to have conversations with the CMO to give the expectation whatever they have and to deliver at that level? It's only if you're able to do as much and to learn how to actually get to that level. That's, I think, a conversation that's not had enough in agencies. As a function, there is this always a gap.
Yeah.
And I think that gap is now widening, and then that leads to more of this reputation that agencies may not be the right parties to solve for all. Whereas I feel maybe 10 years ago, 15 years ago, it was the reverse, because agencies did a lot more. And as a function, we were always maybe a slight half step ahead than the average brand manager who was on the brand side.
I think the point I have in this which is our onboarding today is completely messed up.
Which side, brand or agency?
Both, right? We are expecting, and even at the brand side, even if we hire somebody, I made a LinkedIn post like few days back, which is we are confusing onboarding with orientation. Which is, okay, your Slack is set up, your email is done.
Yeah.
This is the guy you need to spoke to. He reports to you, and then you add them to your marketing team Slack groups, and then he sees like 500 messages coming every day. Same goes with the agency. Like, we bring them on board, we expect them to be expert at their own fields. If, let's assume, we are hiring a performance agency, we say, okay, ads, guys, here's the Google AdWords account. But there is an onboarding that needs to be required on the business side, which is, who are we even trying to reach? What is our consumer base? What is our average AOV? Do we even want to scale? What are our business expectations? So we have minuted down the scope of work ourselves as well as brand owners. And then agency owners are also scared enough to not say, hey, let's have a broader conversation, because I want to spend the first 2 months just understanding consumer. If you go back to the creative agencies of the past, the Fevicol ads or any other ads, like, they were like out in the world just trying to figure out who uses Fevicol, how they use it, how can we depict a story. It's all not man hours put.
Yeah.
Like, you can't put it on an Excel sheet and say, okay, guys, I have worked trying to understand where Fevicol is used. Like, it doesn't work. So I think it goes back to the working relationship, which is, we have become so attached to the data. And I really itch when it comes to the data. Like, I think attribution has killed the marketing as an industry as a whole as well. And all the new people are basically trying to drive their life out of data instead of trying to drive out of a consumer.
100%. Bang on.
100% agreed. I think that the onus is on both people. I think the gap, though, is, I don't think necessarily that you can get someone that's trained on your context, and it's not necessarily on the agency owners to give the brand that person. It's the brand's job to train them on the context. But I would say that just the only thing that I would mildly disagree on is that the agency needs to be good at what they do. Like the job, if I had to hire someone, train them from scratch and get it done and figure out the process of doing it, I can train them on customer context, but if I cannot train them on
The core.
on the job. The reason that I hired them is I want to hit the ground running. If I did not want to hit the ground running, I'd hire a team, I would train them on the job and the context and get them to do the job. Why would I get an agency for that?
Fair.
So the agency has to be they have to be the expert. That's the only reason they're coming in.
Right, exactly.
So that I...
Yeah. On that note, I have to ask you, there was a post of yours which went viral on LinkedIn about how, you should not get an agency. And, I was reading that and my heart sank a little bit for like 5 seconds. Right,
My apologies.
right. But curious to know, I somewhere I know why, but I'm curious to know from you as to what made you write that.
Firstly, I would like to clarify. I didn't say never get an agency. I said for social, very specific context of social, I think there are better ways to do it internally today versus to get agencies. Now, what I mean by that, I think social requires you to be changing every day and thinking of new concepts every day. And you need to be very in tune with the customer, very in tune with the context of the org, and that understanding and that pace at which you can move if you're internal versus your external is a lot quicker, number one. Number two, I personally think that the way that, well, traditional agencies at least operate, the approach of doing social is 30 posts. Mother's Day campaign, Women's Day campaign, Holi campaign. Wow, amazing. We did this film, we did that film. Amazing. But the job of social is not that anymore. The job of social is to show up every day, is to have a creator-led page. If you are a brand and if you are somebody that speaks like a brand, shut the page. There's no point of it. Like if you are not creating content that the customer truly wants to keep coming back for. The reason, why does someone follow Kusha Kapila? She has an IP. Her IP is, I do funny rants, right? The job of the org is to create a personality. Firstly, familiarity. Second is information and value. And third is enough entertainment for them to absorb the familiarity and the value that you're giving them. These are 3 jobs that you have to do on social, and I think that can come only if someone or some 2-3 people own the page and their job is to just obsessively be on the internet, think about it and keep running it. And I can say this I had a sense of this a year ago, and I can say this with a lot of confidence today because we did that. We took away the agency mandate, and we probably spent half of what we spent on the agency mandate today. All inclusive, probably a little bit less than half. We did our organic reach numbers went from say 70-80K a month on an IG to like about 8 million today. Organic, just pure. And like and that was the theory that and for us, for an agency, see, they're like, okay, do get your social going. We'll make posts. We'll make like really good looking posts, and then you put money on it. And that's not the approach anymore. Money should be used to supercharge it. There is no 2 ways about it. Definitely use money to supercharge your social growth, but don't use it as the only way you will grow. You can't just put content and be like, content will not grow, but I will like grow it, right? And there are more agencies than I can tell you that subscribe that model. And more importantly, I think the context that you can build internally, the muscle that you can build internally to do social, and then how that will compound in a couple of years is unreal. Like,
Right.
and I've seen that firsthand, and I think that's the way to go. And I don't mean this for, if I had to do a campaign today, like a big campaign, my first thing was call the top two people that I think will be able to do this, are experts in this field, because I'm not going to be able to get someone out of college and be like, hey, here, Instagram, play with it, right?
Absolutely.
So I think the context was never do not work with agencies. The context was always social.
Right.
Yeah, I think I completely agree with this. Although the words used to describe this thing would be slightly different, but I 100% agree with that. The words I would use is social is a very human thing, right? It is no more about, as she said, like Mother's Day, and like how do you celebrate actually Mother's Day? Like someone has to sit and understand the emotion that a mother or a son or a kid or a daughter has with their mother. Until unless someone is not spending time to find that emotion and then creating a message that works for that, ain't gonna work. 10% off on minimum AOV of 499, wish your mom Mother's Day. That's not how you celebrate Mother's Day. That's not how you talk to your mother. How can you bring conversations which are actually happening real? I remember seeing these clips on social, which was like people moved from work from home to office setups, and suddenly they were saying to each other, "Mummy chai lana," in the while sitting at the office. That's a true conversation that happens while you are sitting at the home. Mummy chai dena, let's say. How can you take that expression? Now, of course, I have picked an example where it looks like mom is doing the work and you are just asking, but I'm just picking one example to explain that situation. How do you bring that fabric of the conversations back to social? And that is what people would finally like. I looked at an ad from Sabyasachi, and I hope I'm using the brand right. But if I'm not, I'll apologize in the comments and I'll try to fix it. But there was this ad which was so there is a lady that comes to interview, and the another woman is basically sitting, and the HR said, "Please wait, we'll call you." And then you sit at this table. They sat at that table, and that woman looked at the other woman who she was interviewing, and she asked, "Are you expecting?" She said, "Yes, I'm expecting." Okay, how much time? 6 months. Okay, great. Have you told the HR? I have not told the HR because they will judge me that I will go on maternity leaves and all that stuff. Don't tell the HR. Okay, just hide it until it is visible. Okay, and then she there was a gift that was there for Diwali, and she just gave that gift to her. Don't worry, I'll take another one from HR. This is for you, and I'll meet you. I hope you are hired. I'll meet you. And that woman goes. The HR comes after like 15-20 minutes. How was your interview?
Yeah, and that turned out to be the interview.
That was the interview, and that is the emotions that you want in, let's say, a Mother's Day.
No, it's definitely not Sabyasachi though.
That's not Sabyasachi. We'll figure out
I know the
brand.
sad.
We'll figure out the brand.
Yeah.
And we'll put it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like that is how you should
Yeah.
talk social. And
Absolutely.
I completely agree with Manvi, which is, I don't know if agency is vested enough to do this whole thing.
I do think though, even an ad like that needs one, money to produce, two, distribution money. Like you would have to put
Yes.
media money on it. For me, social, I feel like social doesn't need media money. Like it needs
Correct.
very little media money. It has to have inbuilt distribution in the idea
Yeah.
to travel on its own. For example, it was so hilarious. Wakefit did like a little post or tweet 2 days ago, and it was on the Met Gala, and they said if we were at the Met Gala, this is how we would do it, and it was an AI generated image of someone wearing blankets, right? And that was lovely, and just like a little quick, memorize. Like the customer's going to remember it, and I think that social needs to travel on its own. Tell us, Tanand, how do you approach social for brands?
My personal belief is that I actually agree with you that the social should be in house. A lot like performance. The only reason you should go to an agency is if you want deep rooted strategic thinking or if you want creativity that you can't get from your own teams. That's the baseline, right? The problem with social is today become a volume game. So what happens with volume is efficiency becomes prioritized over creativity. You also can't do creativity on volume. Impossible. I don't know anybody in the world today whose 30 posts are like all going impossible. Not possible. It's just not, right?
How would you do that?
Yeah, exactly. So you have to benchmark and say, I have 2, 3, 4 tent pole opportunities in the month to knock it out of the park. I will try. But the others is where I will hold the fort and be consistent. I think a hero hub hygiene model, the old school principle, holds good even in a monthly calendar. If you want to create, you can say these are my hero ideas, these are my hub ideas, these are my hygiene stuff that I will do. The problem is most agencies, like the ad that you spoke of, typically for me is a pure piece of creative thinking, also deep rooted in some insight that comes through, and that's a product of creative craft. I think social craft and creative craft are very different.
Very different.
So I feel
Absolutely.
social craft is understanding what will work today, like now. I thought of Met Gala like now, it had to go up yesterday, but I will make it go now and I will do it, right? Whereas I feel, the creative craft of writing a great, coming up to a great idea, writing a script, then producing it, giving out, takes longer. And that's like making a film of sorts, right? You see these great directors like a Christopher Nolan sitting 2 years on an idea of a film. You make him do social media, I'm certain he will suck, like no question about it. But he's a great creative mind, but he can't do. I think so that understanding that is very important.
Absolutely.
And I think trying to build layers is important. I feel the challenge that I had post COVID is the fact that until COVID we were deep rooted social agency. So we were more about speed, more about probably churning something out, and invariably also we understood how platforms work. So you could make something trend, but they may not be looked at as creative craft, right? Post COVID we changed because mandates sort of changed. I think brands sort of couldn't afford a mainline and a digital agency. We were lucky to get integrated mandates, so we had to think for creative. So we started doing these larger campaigns. So then we learned the fact that you can do creative ideas in isolation, and they can sort of be developed into something larger. Now that requires a different skill set. Social, I think, is the right place to start for a creative. Okay. But if you're truly creative, you'll get bored doing social media in 2 years. Then you'd want to do something larger where eyeballs are bigger, money in distribution is bigger, things at stake are bigger. That's why if you look at a business model of an Ogilvy versus any other digital agency, it'd be very different. Ogilvy would not make its name in social media. They can't, right? Whereas they would do the best 10 ad films that come out in that year. They have the capability of doing that. So I feel both are different business models from an agency perspective. And I think you need to understand, if you're doing both together, within the team, you need to have differentiation.
Yeah, you need to have different teams to do
correct,
it. Yeah.
Exactly. So you need a different team that specializes on social, and you need a different team that looks at creative communication through ideas, insights, and merging them into what I call campaigns. So I feel campaigns and day-to-day social, BAU, are different. And I think you need to segregate the two.
I think Talented does this beautifully. They have a campaign only wing, and then they have something called the new thing. And they're a fantastic agency that you can possibly look at if you wanted to do social and like campaigns. That they know how to do the two things separately. But also what I've realized is, if you're a creative person looking to be in the world of content, the other opportunity that really exists is YouTube. Like if you want to make great films and still do social, that's where it merges, because you will do great films and social and deep research. It's a really nice place to be in if that's something you want to do.
Yeah. So now YouTube is a whole other ball game. I think it's the third variant, right, in this entire conversation. Yeah. So on YouTube again, you can be optimized for creativity, or you can be optimized for efficiency. I think both opportunities lie. I think majority of YouTube channels in the world, 80% I think are optimized for efficiency again, because there isn't inherently something creative about it. There is value in the content, or it is entertaining, or it is relatable, etc. does well. And there are outliers, like a Mr. Beast tries to combine all of it together and makes it unique. But there aren't that many Mr. Beasts. Of course, the people are trying and now they're coming through. I think the new generation of creators are fascinating. Like if you go to fitness, health, there are some doctors who do great content. I think that is breaking now, and I feel next 5 years we will have enough examples and case studies to say what you can do from a content perspective, be it YouTube or otherwise. But I think that's a third variant. I think generic social media skills can't spill over to YouTube. I don't think you.
Yeah,
be,
you
just
cannot.
can't.
No, YouTube needs a muscle that it's a different beast altogether.
Absolutely.
And I think for brands, especially if you're doing YouTube, most brands use it as a video repository. Like they host everything there, and I think that is again, but one thing remains if you're doing social is you have to still approach it like a creator.
Yeah.
Like YouTube itself is ZTV. Like your channel is not ZTV and you can't run like 5 shows on it and you can't put like 5 things on it. YouTube itself is ZTV, and then there has to be one dedicated channel for Kyuki Saas Bhi Kabhi Bahu Thi.
Correct.
Like that's what ends up happening. And if your brand approaches it like that, for example, Filter Copy, I think they have Girlyapa. I think it's theirs, right?
Yeah.
So they do very specific content, and that's why people follow just Girlyapa. And I think it's the same creator, one IP creation niche that people need to follow even for brands.
Yeah, exactly. I think, and it's new to marketers, honestly, because
it is.
that audio-visual communication also at volume, it's very different. I think it requires a different sort of experience set, skill set for you to bring it all together. But I think that will also come. I think I'm already seeing young people who, I think historically social has been a young person's game, right?
Yeah.
Because of the nature of what it was. At some point, I think you get outdated. I'm feeling that today at 33, where that I don't know what 21, 22-year-olds core behavior on the platform is like. Some of them, there are new platforms coming through. So I'm also like spending time to like reinvent and learn, because you stay out of it for 2-3 years and then you quickly sort of get left behind. It's a reality.
Yeah.
So unless you're a practitioner on day in, day out, it's hard. So 2020 to 2022, in general, I didn't do as much content on Instagram, right? Like I was going through my archives and I was doing 8 stories a day in 2018. Because I had that much to talk about in general, and I would like just be active. Whereas fast forward to 2022, I was doing maybe 8 stories in a month. So I think there's a change that came through. I think it happens to people. I feel it is not easy once you are slightly older to be always on. We were just talking about it, right? Yeah. So I think these are all linked. So I feel this, we need to find a way to merge these, right? Like we said, it takes 30 years to become a pro in marketing. So like I keep telling this to people, anyone who comes and says they understand brand building, like, you know, brand identity, design, the framing of an archetype, it's not possible in your first 10 years of your career. It takes experience. So I feel that's like, say, the Gen 1, let's call it. Gen 2 is probably who's looked at social now is transitioning to between the two phases. And then there's maybe the modern day marketers who are coming through, who are full platform, who are themselves creators, who know how to write scripts for YouTube, short form, who know UGC. They love like innovating on that.
They
all
deep
of that
on
together.
one thing. Yeah.
So I feel marketing in a right environment should have a combination of all of this together.
Yeah, correct. And that is where I slightly have a different point of view on when we say there is a creative ad and there is a creative social. Like I don't buy that point from a CMO's lens, because at the end what I'm trying to do is communicate to the same set of consumers on a different platform. Now, if let's assume my brand's or my organization's DNA is to be creative, let's take Apple as an example, then there is no way that my social would not depict my creativity as well. So I think the platforms, which I completely agree with you, advertising is a different ballpark game. Creating social media content is a different ballpark game. I treat them as different platforms, but creativity, I treat it as attributes.
Mm-hmm.
Creative is an attribute. Storytelling is an attribute. Emotion is an attribute. So I think those attributes still stay there. But then, of course, you need specialization, which is this guy can produce good advertising and this agency can produce good social. But until unless there is someone who is taking core attributes together, creative for me is an attribute rather than an advertising. So that's why I picked an example of advertising for social.
Yeah.
Because I actually want my social to depict Mother's Day like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, I feel that comes together if everybody in the chain has an understanding of what this brand is about.
Correct.
So I think when that is missing is when it becomes a problem, because social media inherently has become a trends game, right? Like this is trending, so we will do it. The problem is if you copy the trend as is, then there's no difference between you and that other brand who's doing it.
And how do you stand out?
Exactly.
Like, there's no point of doing it. You don't get your
Exactly.
impression.
Exactly.
This looks like couples reels, which is one couple makes it and then 10 couples just copy
No,
paste
exactly,
it, and then
because
you're like, man,
today there are so many of these couple influencers who put out travel content, fitness content, cooking content. I don't know what's inherently different apart from the subject. But then if three other couples are also creating on the same subject, there isn't something different. I'm starting to see a change in that in people who are young, 20 to 25, who are becoming creators, who spend enormous amount of time in actually writing what they're going to produce and then look. So the creative process is a little different there. And I think this is a generation that's very influenced by Mr. Beast. So or that archetype mold of creators. So that change is coming through. But this problem inherently happens for us because a competition brand is doing something a certain way, and then the pressure comes internally because someone saw it and said, our competitor is doing this, what are you guys doing?
वो भी करना है.
Right? And then that brief somewhere translates to the agency, copy that.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, I agree. It's FOMO, unfortunately, and people that are not doing it every day, unfortunately,
Yeah.
have that FOMO because what's seen is what's sells.
Sold.
yeah, but I think there is a good conversation happening everywhere, which is brand needs to be more human, but no one is defining what kind of human that brand should be. So everyone is trying to be more human in terms of communication, in terms of conversation, in terms of likability, but no one is really defining the character. If I was given a mandate saying our brand should look like a person, I would ask like basic questions like, okay, what is the height of this person? Is it bold? Does he have a beard? Or does she wears this clothes? Does she eats non-vegetarian or not? Does he does he ride a bike or a car? Like I will go back to the attributes. Are they short-tempered? Are they not short-tempered? Do they have
Exactly.
patience? Do they don't have
Exactly.
patience? So I'll go back to the attributes of the brand and then define it. And I have an exercise that I learned from somewhere, which is close your eyes and think about a persona of Royal Enfield. Like, what do you imagine? Like, who is riding a Royal Enfield? Can you really draw that user to some
Exactly.
extent? Right? Some extent you do that.
Yeah. It's almost who your user becomes if they use Royal Enfield is the answer. Like your
100%.
archetype is the answer. Basically, if I had to answer for Royal Enfield, I would say it's a quite tall man with like a nice white beard and a lame leather jacket and boots, woodland
Damn
boots.
it.
That's it. That's
Yeah.
the guy.
So
this
if
is,
you can,
this is
yeah.
brand as a person.
Yeah,
Yeah,
so you
exactly.
can, and the extension of that becomes like associating that with a celebrity, right? Somebody that you comes to your mind, and because you need that kind of a reference, then it holds it together.
Correct.
To the last person in the chain who probably is not privy to a lot of the conversations when you create it.
I also think that sometimes if you're talking about making brand more human, the approach should also be who the brand comes from. Like the founder-led
Yeah,
marketing
so
is
true.
very, very important for some I wouldn't say for all brands, but for some brands is very critical because I think a celebrity can never do for your brand and never be the face of the brand in the way that you can, and nobody can hold the celebrity's neck, but your neck is on the line, and when your neck is on the line, you're trusted.
Correct. And this goes back to like if you have a best friend and I come to you and I say your best friend has done this, the first thing in your brain is no, he can't do this because I know him from so long.
Right.
Yeah.
This is exactly what your brand should be. Like even
Yeah.
if your brand mess up, your consumers are like, man, you
Right.
can't do this. This is not your usual behavior.
So now this is a custodianship of the brand team, right? This can't generate from the agency. Agency can operate with it, unless they are the ones who are creating the brand for you. But this of who my brand is, what my brand is, has to be shielded, guarded. You from a brand perspective, the custodianship has to rest there, and the agency has to pitch ideas or work with it, or figure out how to use this persona. Let's put it that way. I feel that is little weak today, and I feel the reason for that is marketing has expanded very rapidly. Demand for marketers, quality marketers, is very high. Unfortunately, supply is not meeting it. Reality,
Absolutely.
right? It's a lot like how engineering was maybe a few years back, or even now for that matter, because things have changed from with what AI can do for you. But typically, I feel this is the problem in most industries where there isn't enough skilled crafted labor, let's put it that way, and as a function this becomes a little depleted, and then everybody has their own way of working. Then speed becomes priority over that quality, and then it becomes an industry wide thing, right? Then more and more agencies feel it's more easier to make money than not focusing on this and just doing what is required, and then it becomes rinse and repeat. Unfortunately, bad behavior gets picked up.
And this goes back to the line I keep saying: attribution has messed up marketing.
Tell me why though that the agency cannot you're 100% right that there needs to be a brand custodian and that has to come from the brand team. But why can't an agency?
No, agency can. Good agencies do. In
Yeah.
fact, good teams understand this at the base level. Like, in fact, when I take a brief, one important section is I ask them, "What's your brand personality? Talk to me." And there are very few people. Like, I've had a great experience once working with a law firm who gave me a beautiful. Like, I still have that one pager somewhere in my drive where I wrote it down and I sent it to him. And this is a very senior brand strategist who was working with that brand, and he said it's bang on. And we were able to develop communication very precisely. But he went to the pinpointed thing saying, think of a silver foxed individual, a range between a George Clooney and a Rahul Dravid, right? Could be cunning but won't be, but has the ability to switch that up when the moment comes. Stuff like all of that, right? Very, very core, deep rooted into what the attributes are. Then it becomes easier, but that orientation needs to come. Like, I've had
Fair.
similar experience working with the team at Puma. At one point when I worked with them, they were so strong on who they were. Like, they knew it. So if an idea came, they would say and they knew how to coach the agency as well to think differently. Like, once I took an idea, and I've talked about it a lot of times, and the brand manager said, so if I remove Puma and if I put Adidas logo, does that work? So for that one particular idea, that tonality was somewhere in between. We couldn't answer it. So she said, then it's not our idea. We have to be Puma. So that is very important. And you also,
Fair.
right, need to be able to sort of understand, because what happens in an agency is, because you're so, like, every creator looks at the idea like a mother looks at the child, right? They're very defensive. They love it. They will never take criticism, and they need to, because that's how you are able to give a good idea or bring it to life. So they're always married to it. So often at times that they can't see the faults in their own kid. So that becomes a challenge, and that's
It
why I
is
feel
very
the brand team plays a role. But that is a slow process. So if a brand is, and this is again a problem of growth-led marketing, where everything is about growth, then it becomes a challenge where you don't have time to do this, right? Because, and this is an organization induction. Right, or orientation rather. Sorry, I mixed those words up. But see, it happens here too. But it's so I spend a lot of time actually trying to find out what is that the business wants, what is that the business owners want, how do they look at business, and what is marketing's role to supplement business. Then all of this becomes clear.
Yeah.
And invariably, I think in the last 10 years, 15 years, there's been so much venture funding into the world of brands that brands look at growth first. Like, I keep talking about the Zomato model, where it is all distribution first. Distribution creates PR. On the back of PR, they built a brand. Many years later, they say, now we'll flip the pyramid and make it more traditional. We will bring a thought and then try to instill down, but still we'll keep some of the legs active. But all brands, I think, for the last 15 years in India, especially venture funded, have wanted to become Zomato. They want to be Zomato, they want to be Swiggy, right? But they don't understand that.
There's a new one. They want to be Zepto.
Right. Maybe. Right?
There's a new one, right?
But funny enough, I have not seen as much communication from Zepto as I've seen of Zomato's. At least maybe.
Maybe I just
Right, but yeah,
I
fair.
see it, yeah.
But fair. But that's the reality, right? That's
Yeah.
where things are today, and that is different. I think that's not advertising, and I feel that also is very like Zomato grew because they had 3-4 people in that team who stayed there for 7, 8, 9 years, who were able to bring their personal styles into the brand, make that an identity, and that continuity gave the brand a sort of a personality. But if Akshar Pathak had left 1 year and they got somebody else the second year, and that guy left and they got third person third year,
Yeah, they would not
this
have
would
been
not
able to.
happen.
Yeah.
So that's an anomaly. You can't replicate anomalies. So I think that's again something that maybe brands and marketers need to be more inquisitive about in terms of how to go about that. So that's been a challenge. So all of these things compound in a brief meeting, and especially in a meeting where agency is not there and internally they're sort of discussing and seeing if this works or not. So I used to have this challenge. Like I remember in 2016, I told my then consulting team that when we look at an agency, let's find somebody who understands musically. And people are like, what's musically? It was TikTok, got rebranded 2 years later. But all the signs were there in 2015-16 that this is going to blow up. But not everybody has consensus, right? And unless you're deep in the trenches, you won't know what is going to work or not. So I understand how much of a challenge it is on the brand side to get everybody on the same page. So I feel that's another challenge. So all of these things compound, and then agency starts thinking, I'll just take the easy way out. It's a human tendency. Why fight the hard battle? They're not able to understand. And I also think when knowledge levels are low, and this I've seen a lot, both when I was in the brand side and I'm very brutal about calling this out, you can't put up a fight. Reality.
Yeah.
So even if the brand is asking for A today and B tomorrow, when A and B are poles apart, you don't have the confidence to push back. And that happens a lot in social digital agencies. It won't happen in a brand agency where people or a traditional creative agency where people have honed this skill through 15 years of storytelling and working on some of the top brands in the country. They will not budge. So that's again an orientation gap inside the agency of how to look at it. So I feel since anyone can start an agency, like I have been guilty of it too. I have put my hand up and said I've contributed to this problem in certain early years of our career. This is a problem that can't be solved unless you look top down and say we need to correct it. I was lucky to do so because COVID gave an opportunity for us to reset a lot of things, and through those years we built a great bank balance. So you can sit in meetings and then push back and say, I don't need this business, which I think a lot of agencies can't do. And I think that's a problem.
That's a problem.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it also goes back to what I called as bifocal marketing, which is I very consciously try to split my day between short, mid, and long term. Like I consciously do that, which is my day begins, of course, with like how was yesterday, right? Just like everybody else. But I have a hard stop, let's assume at lunch, where I now flip my focus towards, okay, what my next quarter or next 6 months plan look like. And then towards the evening, it's all blogged for like what my next 12 to 24 months look like. What that has helped me is while I am in the meetings, I'm able to connect the tactics to strategies. And then I know this tactic will not help me for the next 12 months. I stop it then and there. And then I explain it really the why of it, which is like, I don't want to do, let's say, musically for your example, because I'm trying to get up subscription business, not my, let's assume, transactional e-commerce business. And subscription business can be sold more via, let's assume, other channel.
Yeah.
And that pushback a lot of people appreciate because they're like, okay, now we are finally starting to understand how your brain functions, or aka how brand's brain functions. That has helped me at least. And I have a very conscious thing that I do, which is I shut my brain at lunch, which is all short term is taken care of until unless there is, of course, like a large fire, like something has really messed up. But my team knows this, my leadership knows this, like we all have aligned on this is how I function. And I have a second principle I keep telling marketers to do this, which is stay away from laptop for some time a day. Go out, meet a consumer, have a conversation, just see what is happening in these small shops, just see how people are booking Uber rides while waiting at a bus stop. Like, watch out those interactions, because from those interactions you'll finally be able to get back onto your laptop and do something. So I prioritize for my team that okay, it's over. Like you have done what you could have done, and I have this quote I keep telling my team, which is, if you haven't completed it in 8 hours, it's not gonna get completed in 12 hours. Like for
Yeah.
most of the things, until of course there's a work in progress and all that. But if you can't think in 8 hours, you will not be able to think in 12 hours. Turn off your laptop. Let's talk tomorrow. Figure it out. So I do these small things, which basically helps me get slightly sound. Let's
Yeah.
say if we want to use that
Yeah.
word, and slightly sane.
I think what you said is so bang on. I think some of the best marketers are marketers that have a life.
Yeah.
Like if you do not
Absolutely.
have a life,
Yeah, you're dead.
you need a hobby, do pottery, do read, whatever the hell. If you do not have a life, you cannot be a good marketer.
Yeah, absolutely. I keep saying this in office. I say to be good in advertising, you need to have a life outside advertising. Like
Yeah.
get out
Yeah.
and like meet people, do things. Very important.
Have a good life,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
literally, like be passionate about something else other than
Yeah,
work. And
absolutely.
I think I so critical to be good at our jobs.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in hiring rounds asking about this. What do you do outside of work?
Yeah.
What are your
Yes.
hobbies? What are your
Likewise.
interests?
Yeah.
And spend a lot of time on that. And on that note, tell me how do you guys go about hiring for your teams? What's your philosophy, or because there's no right answer, it's just what works for each, right? So very curious to know how you guys gone about it. Has it evolved? Was it something in the early days? You look at it differently now.
I think on the early days I was very focused on can I train this person to do this job, because I was also hiring for like more exec level roles, and I wasn't too bothered about who they were, what they did. I was like, do you know Excel? Do you know this? Come do it. That's all. I know story. But I think over the years I've realized that one, like I already mentioned, look for a life. Like I recently hired someone that's this for a very core brand role that has her own IG at like 120K followers, has grown over the last 6 months, very actively works on it, and I'm like, yeah, fantastic, check mark. Second, like I said in the beginning, has the capacity to have the generalist muscle with the specialist muscle. Like you're really, really good at something. You're curious enough about four other things to be able to get the job done. I think those are my two core things when I'm hiring someone. And one other thing is, it's just, if in the interview you're able to talk to me versus interview with me, I think that becomes very critical for me. I every time someone's in an interview with me, I get nothing off that person. Like it's a wall. I'm trying to get through a wall, and that doesn't
Yeah.
help. So if you're able to have a conversation with me confidently about yourself, about whatever I'm telling you, yes, that is a good exploratory chat. That there is a fit there. But yeah, what I don't like though is the agreeing with everything you're saying. I think that gets a bit on my nerves. Like, yes, I may be right,
Yeah.
but don't so vehemently like ChatGPT agree with me. So yeah, I think those are my lookouts.
Right.
Yeah, over the last, I think, 3-4 years, I was really nodding my head to this question, which is, how do you hire right? And I was not able to get my framework somehow to what I wanted.
Yeah, it's a very tough one.
Right, and
Yeah.
it was always like, okay, I'm asking a question, they are giving an answer. We move to, let's say, okay, you do an assignment as well, you do this. I was not very happy with that, and I kept banging my head. In the last 3-4 years, I have developed this framework somehow. I don't know how I reached to it, but it has worked. So now I ask just 3 questions in any interview. So my first question is, okay, give me a brief intro about you, which ideally I would like it to be 2 to 3 minutes at max. Like you ended up there. Then comes the main question, which is gonna go for at least 45 to 50 minutes. And how I do that is, on my iPad, I'll share my screen and I'll say, let's work together. And we just start working. And we say, for example, and this is a real interview, like I did, like I think 2 or 3 months back, I interviewed 45 plus people. Not one of them cleared it. if I would have used my previous framework, I would have hired probably 15 out of them. Okay, so I said, okay, guys, we are in a meeting. I'm. Let's assume you're manager. You are the head of retention. Let's build a retention strategy together. And I say, okay, what do you know in retention? Like, what are the levers of retention? And they keep telling me, okay, loyalty programs, email communication as channels, WhatsApp as infrastructure, all these creative. And so they will lay down their retention strategy. Okay, perfect. Which topic do you want to pick out of these that you want to talk? Now, a lot of people, as I go back to my 4 Ps or 7 Ps of conversation, a lot of people have actually not worked on all of those things. But they like to say loyalty programs in a retention interview because like everyone knows loyalty programs increase retention. But they have you actually worked on loyalty programs? So they will pick some complex topic on purpose because like I'll sound slightly smarter or whatever, and they'll say, let's talk loyalty program. Okay, great. And we have extensively introduced subscription programs, and we know like the problems of a subscription business. For example, so they will start with subscriptions. I'm like, okay, let's talk. What percentage of subscription do you think our consumer will adopt? 50%. Which business has 50% adoption to from normal transaction to subscription? None.
What is it?
Huh?
What is it?
What is it as in?
What's a number?
What's a good number?
Good number would be if you can get to a 20%, 25%, you are killing it, right?
I was thinking 10-12% is realistic.
25 is you are killing it.
Okay.
Like 10
So
to 12 is where average is the world living.
Okay.
So they'll start off with 50%. I'm like, okay, great. Can you help me build a retention chart of your subscription business? Subscription business has either quarterly payments or monthly payments or yearly payments. So there is drop off points at each payment set. They build a retention chart which is all like, makes no sense at all because it's going down as a normal retention chart would go without a loyalty program. I'm like, drop off points are where? Actually, the other team takes care of loyalty.
Yeah.
Perfect. So my first question is intro. My 45 minutes is this one question. I've learned this now. It has worked like charm for me. You tell me what you will do and I'll ask you questions on your. There's no blame game now because I'm not asking difficult questions. I'm saying you tell me and we'll go deeper. And then my last question is exactly what Manvi is saying. Like, do you have a life? Which is like, how do you learn your friend circle? Do you go out? Do you food is your hobby or not? And that is the perfect interview that I am using right now.
I'm going to steal this.
From the last 3 years, it has just served me really well. I don't know over time if I'll mature from this as well, but that's what I'm doing
So
right now.
it takes you what, 1 hour to get through a candidate, that means?
This is a 1 hour meeting.
It's a podcast.
But like
Yeah, it's a podcast.
It's a podcast, exactly.
I also do podcasts though. How do you do without, because 15 minutes later they will just, like you said in the beginning of this conversation, 15 minutes, 30 minutes is very easy to hold a personality. Unless you sit with them for an hour, there's no way you're going to know.
Yeah. But also there is also a filtering process. So the resumes before they come to me has already been filtered by my team like couple of times. So it's mostly like either it's their last round or one round before HR. So it's like the round basically for them. But like one person probably cleared from that. They're doing good because now they exactly know what they can do. I love when people say, okay, I know retention has these 10 points. I have worked on 2. I would love to work on 3, 4, 5.
Right.
If your brand has that. Then I would say, okay, let's work because you can't be more than your experience.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your experience. I actually want to explore you. I want to learn from you. I'm not here to reject you.
I actually desperately want to hire you if possible.
Because it solves our problem.
I've realized that so much in the last 3 months because I've been hiring. Like, I want to hire you. Give me something so that I can hire you.
Please be good. Yeah. So we are in any hiring manager is in a desperate stage.
Right.
Yeah.
But like you just have to be truthful and say, okay, I know this, I learned this, and we'll figure this out.
Right, got it. I funny enough don't spend more than 30 minutes now on hiring. I think because they also go through rounds, and I think
they come to you. Yeah,
third round is probably with me typically.
Right.
Or fourth, depends on the structure. But now I don't spend more than 30 minutes. Before I used to. If it goes beyond 30, then it's a great sign that I'm having a great time with this candidate. Like
Candidate,
typically,
yeah.
that's how I look at it. It doesn't necessarily mean they're right for the job.
Yeah, I feel like these are all very like they're too prescriptive the way
Yeah,
that we're
yeah.
talking about it, and
Yeah.
I don't think that real life really plays out like
True.
that, and nobody interviewing with any of us should be taking this as a
Benchmark, yeah.
as a benchmark, please, guys.
Yeah, true.
If someone watches this podcast and their interview is with me,
Yeah.
they're gonna be like,
Yeah, some people are doing that now.
Yeah, they do.
A lot of
They do.
people are
They
doing
learn.
that.
They learn about you. Like
That's
someone
good.
came. No, that's not good because someone came to me. I literally interviewed them last week. They lapped up my LinkedIn and they came and said all the things that I said on my LinkedIn because it felt like, okay, you know, if you mirror, they were, and there was no point in this conversation where it needed to go back to that because we weren't even talking. Like most of the stuff that I say on LinkedIn is about social and we were not even talking about it. I randomly kept going back to it and I was like, this is so weird. Okay, never mind.
I had something similar last week. One person said, I have consumed 12 hours of your content in the last 3 days.
Wow.
So I was like, wow. It's
I don't know if that's
I
good
sympathize
or
with it.
No,
I said, I haven't done that.
Where
So
do you
like,
work?
Yeah.
My first question,
Where do you
work?
currently work? Yeah.
Yeah, so that was. I'm starting to get a lot of this now, but I don't think, to be very honest, like I said, if you have a long conversation, you'll know if they're
Yeah,
mirroring
exactly.
or
Yeah,
Which
if
is
they're not.
why, yeah. Which is why it's good to have like a nice,
Yeah.
good long chat with them.
Yeah. I have a follow-up question to this, which is: do certifications help? Do outside job training, structured learning programs training, do they really add value? And are you seeing any results of that? Could be for yourself or team members, however.
See, there are many things that you can evaluate a candidate on, and there will be signals. There will be good signals, and sometimes signals, unfortunately, are certification. I've done this as part of my course. Degree. Sometimes those are the signals, but what I've seen at least help me. I did GrowthX myself, and it didn't do anything for me at a job level, like nothing on an interview level or anything. But what it did for me is it opened up because they teach using, like they literally, the process of GrowthX is to work on projects, and for marketers, like we've been discussing this whole podcast, is to build muscle, and it built my muscle some more, and built my muscle a little it was a little gruesome to go through those 6 weeks. So I think it was in a good way, and this was about 2-3 years ago. But I think when I'm hiring someone, it gets points personally. It gets points on a, yeah, okay, it's a good signal. That's it. Like I'm not sure what it does overall for them on the job or during an interview.
So I'm not looking for certifications as in like the name of the certifications, but I'm definitely looking for, are they trying to challenge their own opinions by educating themselves?
Yeah. Signaling. Yeah.
Signaling, correct.
Yeah.
So for example, there's a book called How Brands Grow by I'm bad with names. I'm not gonna make the mistake second time. So How Brands Grow. So How Brands Grow is the name of the book, and it has a chapter which is all about why discounts don't work.
Right.
Like, or there is a chapter which talks about like how data lies to you, and things like that. Now, when you are well read, or you are doing these courses or programs or all of those things, you are trying to contradict your own opinions, and that is where you finally evolve.
You're trying to build perspective.
You're trying to build perspective, exactly. And that is when it's very, very good to have a conversation with someone who is not fixated with an idea. Oh, discounts work. Oh, they work in situations. They are also disasters in situations. Loyalty program works. Yes, for certain businesses, not for certain businesses. Building a brand is very, very important. Yes, for certain businesses, not for certain businesses. So I treat education from a perspective of like, are you able to contradict your own opinions? And then you come evolved in an interview or in your life. That's very easy to talk to. But no, I would not look at like, okay, you have done, let's say, growth hacks, or you have done this. I will only hire if you have done this. Doesn't matter at all.
Certifications don't matter. The building of perspective and the signaling that gives you, that you're willing to go the extra mile to like, kind of just learn more. You have a
Yeah.
hunger to learn.
Yeah.
I think that matters to me.
True.
100%.
And I think if you have that, you can learn anywhere and anyhow.
Yeah.
But that is very important for me. Like if let's say someone is not able to tell me couple of books, couple of things, couple of articles, couple of case studies, or they are not able to contradict with some bit of literature or education or whatever we call it, like that's a big point for me, which is if you have not read anything in the last 2 months about marketing or about consumer behavior or anything of your interest that evolves you, that's definitely a red flag I have.
You're not
with
expanding
me.
your brain. Where is it happening?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's a red flag for me for sure.
Fair. No, agreed. Yeah, GrowthX is a fabulous course, by the way,
Love
because I think it's different. You can't learn that in your job. So if you get that
Fabulous.
expansion, you do. And
Yeah.
especially if you're coming from brand, creative, social, I think it adds a great layer.
Yeah, it's very, very good to build you.
Yeah. Harit, I remember you spoke about the fact that a CMO essentially is a chief negotiating officer and not always just marketing, right? What do you mean by that?
So, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, which is your customers are looking at your brand from a perspective of like, you will make my life better. You will do good for me. But then there is also a brand P&L which needs to be taken care of, which is more about so for example, anything that comes on my table is actually contradicting itself 99% of the time. Right? My
Unfortunate reality of life.
my team says, okay, we need more discounts, whereas in finance is talking about margins. And they're like, man, I can't give you 5% because 5% margin is like very important piece for me. Consumers want personalization, which is don't send me a push notification which is not relevant to me. But then there are lawyers who are telling me GDPR, which is, man, you can't use consumer data until you don't have consent of them. Brands or consumers say, give me new features as quickly as possible. Whereas in the product team is saying, okay, we need to test it out, QA, QC, and then only we can ship it. And our shipping timeline looks like 3 to 6 months or 10 months. Consumers are saying, or brands are saying that we need faster way to reach to the customer service. Customer support team is trying to optimize their human resources for money. Right? So it's always this negotiation, and none of the parties actually win. Right? But being the CMO is like, you have to do the right thing for the consumer for sure, but you also have bills to pay, which is built by the brand. So I always say like everyone in my room walks out like 50% happy and 50% unhappy, and that also includes consumers who are actually not in the room, but I behave like they are in the room. I keep a empty chair in my meeting rooms, and I say, this is the customer. This is the framework I actually have. And I say, this guy doesn't want this. And there's no one, but it's like all the millions of users we reach. So it's always a negotiation. So you have to negotiate on behalf of the customer, but you also have to negotiate from the brand on behalf of, let's say, your own internal teams. So that is what I mean by negotiation. So my 80% of the day is negotiation, which is you're just trying to do the best for your customers while maintaining a healthy P&L. And if you can do that, you are a magician, right? And marketers are now expected to be magicians by default. Like average tenure of a CMO is now 1.5 years, right? Because expectations are so high, but they also want to do the right things. But then the leadership team or the management team or the board things like, we are not growing fast enough, good enough, and things. And they're like, I'm extremely pressurized. I don't have enough resources. I don't have enough people. I don't have enough time, and I'm gonna flip out. So I think marketing pressure is increasing a lot, and I would blame attribution. But yeah, this is what I mean by negotiation.
Right. You resonate with that?
Absolutely. No, truer words have not been spoken. Like, I don't think, unfortunately, every decision is a trade-off. Like,
Yeah.
some sort of a
Fair.
trade-off. There is some opportunity cost involved. Like, someone's losing something. It's just unfortunate. Yeah.
Right.
But it's also, you're lucky to be in that position where you're aware that there are trade-offs and you're making them, and it's okay to make them. Like, you would rather know that you're making the trade-off.
Right.
Yeah, a chief skill set or a core skill set. A marketer, I think, needs to have negotiation and a storytelling skill sets.
Yeah.
Because until you don't have those storytelling, you would get pinned down every single day in your rooms.
Right.
Because if, let's assume, one party wins over the other party, and both of them don't make that the word used as trade-offs,
Yeah.
then you are losing every single day.
Yeah.
And then you are gonna have in the next 12 months a product which consumers don't like, but a P&L that everyone likes, but that P&L would also start dipping because consumers don't like you. So it's always a loop, and my marketer sits in between this loop who says, okay, wait, guys, let's be slightly sane. I get it, but here is it. No, I can't do it in 12 months. I want it in 6 months. Okay. Consumers, I'll give you in 6 months. Is it okay? And they're like, but there's a competition coming in. I'll flip to them. Okay, man, honestly, there's a competition coming in, and my consumers are going to flip to them. Why don't we try to protect our business? Okay, 4 months. Okay, great. Marketing team, please try to protect our consumers till 4 months while this gets shipped. So it's always, you are always mediators, and you're always trying to make everyone happy. And man, no one is happy with the marketers at all at the end of the day.
You are always the punching bag. It's just unfortunate.
Yeah, yeah.
That is so true.
But one observation is, when we were speaking about hiring, one of the other things that I really like this brings up is, will you be able to stand in a room with 10 people having whatever the hell opinions they want to have and convince them to do what's right for the business and the consumer? Will you be able to do that? If you are, then you are the right fit, especially for some roles that becomes very critical. I think there's no way out of it. And that brings me to another point. We've put too much on the need to have list when you're hiring a marketer. Not everybody needs it, guys. I want to say, like, this is our wish list, but you can have something else that'll sell you. But yeah.
I learned it a really, really hard way. Like this, I did not have storytelling skill set at all.
Yeah.
Right? I was always...
And I didn't have any negotiation skills, I think.
So I was always entering into a room where I would make the person who I have to get job out of, let's assume tech team or the product team, and I'll just like make them feel angry from my requests. And I was like, man, I was just trying to tell you I need this, right? And then whenever I will pull in my manager into that room, suddenly like the room was awake. Conversations were flowing, things were okay, and they were like, okay, we can do it in 2 weeks. And I'll always come out of that room thinking, man, it was weren't they the same words being spoken? Like what actually changed? And over time, I started understanding the fabric of human connection within the organization. So as a marketer, you also need to find your allies in the organization, which is like, okay, you understand we have the same vision, so you have to story tell people to get them onto your platform, your vision, whatever you want to call it. And then you try to get work out of it. But like over time, I find that now people pull in the meetings, which is, Harneet, you come in and you do this.
You gotta sell it. You need to sell it. You need to sell sand to the camel.
Yeah, it's funny. So last week I gave a presentation, and it's a thing. And the title of the presentation is 3 business myths we have.
Nice.
Like that's the presentation I gave.
Nice.
Like it was a 1-hour presentation. I collected like almost 15 folks, all from leadership team and other departments. And I just said, guys, we have 3 business myths. We need to solve them. They are not true. They are driven by perception, not by data. And then I tried to explain all those myths, and I started breaking them. And at the end of the people were like, man, we were like so blinded by like our perceptions. But like data does not tell the story. So yeah.
Interesting. It's so true. I've seen so many talented young marketers find this a challenge. The inability to sell themselves or
also comes with time.
Exactly, right? And then there are some of them who are, for whatever reason, good at communication at a young age and are gifted. Like I've had a few friends who are promoted in certain large holding companies of advertising because they were great communicators for whatever reason. It just happened so. To an extent, I also feel I did a lot of public speaking in college, not for anything else because it is a substitute for you get attendance if you do that, and you can bunk class after that. Literally, that's all that I did. So I did a lot of this for that reason, and it helped me at some level, to communicate. And because of that, I think people also then tend to listen to you sometimes, even if you're wrong. It happens
Yes.
to good communicators actually. So this is a very interesting thing, and I think selling yourself is a number one skill you can develop as a marketer. I feel like just communication wise,
Yeah.
it just makes a huge difference.
Absolutely.
On this note, I have a follow-up question for you, Manvi, which is in an environment like this where you have to control and, like you said, everything is a trade-off. How do you take decisions when you know something is good for a brand in the long term, but the short-term direction is slightly different, where it's maybe more optimized for growth or more for what is the quarterly target, whereas as a brand you probably need to persist with the direction maybe for long term. So how do you balance that out?
See, the decision, it's very, very tough, but I think the decision needs to, the framework for the decision is, this is what is good for the long term. So this absolutely has to happen. You can't do something short term and then 6 months later be like, okay, now we need to do something else. So what has to happen long term absolutely happen. What we can do is we can also do something to solve the short term problem. Like you cannot, so for example, let's say we had a small category launch, and what ended up happening was the right short term decision for us was to quickly just put a brand on it that existed for us, like and we were just like, okay, just let's take it. But what ended up happening was that if we'd made that decision, we would have created customer confusion, and that was not possible. So the right decision was, okay, we do the new branding. We absolutely have to. There's no two ways about it. But we find ways to speed it up, number one. And in the meantime, you need some collaterals. We'll make documents for you. We'll give you documents. Use those as WhatsApp documents, and it'll look like it's from the same world, and it'll use the same words. We'll finalize the name, but you won't have branding for some time. Just live with that, and we'll make it. You still get the document. You still get talking points for your salespeople. You get customer. You'll get some collaterals to show to the customer, but you won't get design. You won't get a campaign. You won't get all of that. Just live with it. I think what has to happen long term has to happen. There is no two ways about it, because if you compromise long term, you're literally putting money on the line, and you're not from okay, I'll spend now and then I'll spend later again, but you're putting money on the line from a perspective that what is the trade-off of not doing this, that is the question to be asking. And yeah, I think that's how you make the decision.
Right.
Yeah, and I think it also goes back to the culture that leadership team sets. So as leaders, like, it is also our responsibility to give and build a culture which is more accustomed to long-term thinking, while pressurizing a little bit on the short-term achievements as well. And until you don't have that culture available, and you start punishing your team or your people on short-term losses while they were making the long-term decisions, as human behavior, like, I am doing a job, and at the end, I always have this question. It's a very weird question to ask ourselves, but I keep asking this question every day, which is, will my team upload their resume tonight or not? I always have this question in my head for some weird reason, which is, will this team member go home today and upload their resume because they feel this is not the right place to be? Right. And I try to communicate for sure, because communication will solve it. There is one way of me coming in the room and saying, guys, everything is red. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? And start banging people out. And then they're like, I know numbers are green or red, but there were like 20 reasons for that. So I negotiate, I communicate, and then I try to provide an environment. And I use the word try because, like, obviously it's a large organization. You can only do it in your own capacity, to have a long-term vision while also pushing them, okay, do the short term things because it is important. And I can give you a real example as well, which is, okay, we need more revenue, let's send more emails, which is a
Then-
very common thing that happens in brands, right? But like, I'm talking about an emailers which were in the range of, let's say, 3 million, and now they have reached, let's say, 9 million, and everything looks green right now because, like, okay, revenue is increasing, but man, you have increased your email sent per consumer from 1 to, let's assume, 7, and that consumer is
You're
now
gonna get
starting
blocked and
exactly.
spam.
Exactly, you're gonna
Marked
get
as
blocked.
spam.
Exactly, you're gonna get blocked. You're gonna get spammed, and for the long term, it's not helping. But your email person is doing that because he's like, I want to have a good night's sleep today, and all this guy is looking at is email revenue. So let me get him the email revenue.
Yeah.
So I think it starts from top, and that security, and even as a CMO as well, I need to be also secure within myself, which is, even if I go to my leadership team, I need to have a stand there rather than like being that guy who is, it's red because of somebody else and all those things. But yeah, it's red because we are doing investments here. So I feel it is leadership's responsibility to build that culture.
Yeah.
And then obviously it's team's responsibility to reciprocate that feeling of the leader, because if you start taking advantage of that environment, then you obviously don't deliver as well. So there is a right, and this goes back to chief negotiation officer. Like, this is also a negotiation you are
Yeah.
doing every day.
Right.
I think also that there are hackier ways. See, anyway, the short term thing is in a lot of cases a hack.
Yeah.
Different hacks. You don't have to compromise the long term. Hacks are, you will find plenty of them, no?
And that's the skill that you need in leadership, right? To somehow make all sides happy while figuring out. No?
Make the best decision for business and brand. Do not please make the decision for all sides happy. That's not gonna happen.
All
Yeah.
sides should not kill you.
Yeah,
got it.
that is it.
That is
That's
got
it.
it.
That's it.
All
In
sides would
essence,
not
that's
be.
only possible if they're happy.
No,
No.
They
You-
can
you
be,
just don't want
They can
them
be
to-
mildly annoyed.
Mildly enough, yes.
Fine.
Not enough to pull out a knife from their pocket and kill you, but
Okay.
maybe you are okay with like a push.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Sorry, but you were saying something.
No, I mean, like, that's the skill you need, or craft of head of that department, CMO, that you need to keep those sides, like you said, in giving everybody a piece of what they want, but at the same time holding the fort in terms of what's best for long-term decisions.
Yeah.
So that's
You
a
have
skill
to.
in itself. Right?
Yeah.
That comes, if you don't have that, you're probably not in that position. So that's what
Yeah.
it means,
Correct.
right? I want to ask you specific to the roles that you guys have handled in these organizations. I'll start with you, Manvi, which is what you do today is a very, very high consideration category, right? I'm certain that the consumer would probably spend a lot of time researching, evaluating. They themselves are pseudo experts by the time they sort of reach out for the service, and there's a very, very strong feeling that they have towards what they want, because it's something that you do inside their house. It's a long-term investment.
It's their life.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, it's a reflection of how they see their life, their
Yeah.
house, etc., etc.
Yeah.
What has been some of those insights that you've picked up from the consumers that were probably sort of eye-opening to you as well, coming from a different category to this one?
See, the average order value for this category is anywhere between, say, 8 and 12 and 15 lakhs. So it's almost, they are spending their life savings to do this. So while we promise hassle-free and we promise that we will do this without you having to break your head too much, they're actually very happy to be involved. They're actually very happy to be breaking their heads, and they want to be like, they don't want to break their heads on the stupid things like, okay, call the electrician 10 times. But they want to break their head on this lamp or the 100th lamp that I saw, or the white, the beige white, the almond white, the grey white, which white. They're very happy to do that. And I think the joy, they find joy in personalizing their house. And I think that we've built into our funnel that they're allowed to still find that joy, allowed to feel like allowed to feel like and actually make the decisions that they want to make without 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 losing out on the convenience of it. And I think we oftentimes take customers to be very, there's this perception of white collar customers where they just want everything done. They want everything in 10 minutes. It's not true. Like it's not actually. They want something small done in 10 minutes, and they want the convenience of, they're probably making an elaborate Mexican themed dinner at home, and they are involved. They are making the effort. They just forgot to buy red beans. That's it. That's literally it. They're not, that's the convenience you're offering them. You're not offering them the convenience of not thinking, not doing,
Right.
not feeling. Like, these are still, that's my biggest.
Right. In terms of from a marketing lens now, how do you, like, is it very different from the earlier categories and industries that you worked at?
Very different. I did my core, like I said, I did a lot of Swiggy, Quicker, WeWork.
Very B2C. But very fast, impulse driven.
Yeah, very impulsive. I did some of IKEA, but I didn't do so much of it, so I wouldn't like count that. And then after that, I was in the kids space for about 3-4 years, and the kids space is very different. You're appealing to the same
Parents.
audience, because the age group is the same. These are the same people buying houses and getting their houses done. So there's some similarity in the audience, but I was not even selling in India at that point in time. So slight change of audience. It is very different. And they're buying, that was a once in a year purchase. The users for Swiggy and stuff were a daily based purchase. This customer comes to you once in their entire lives. So customer acquisition always has to be on. You're always acquiring future potential customers, and you're making sure that they know you, see you, opt for you whenever they're ready to buy that house and go forward. And the years that you're doing this in, like a customer buys a house anywhere between 2 or 3 years or 4 years even before they get a handover, start doing their house. They start thinking about doing their interiors, which is when they use this whole time to become experts at building their house, at knowing what they want in their interiors, at researching. And you have to reach them in that period, and they'll actually only convert when they're 3 months out of hand, like 3 months out from getting their handover. So the cycle within which you're speaking to them, the cycle within which you're getting them on board is much larger. That said, there is always enough, like even if I want to acquire someone today, which performance happens very quickly. But if you want to build a brand in this space, you have to think about future living and what people want. So it's a very different category and very different ball game.
And it's also very, very much emotion driven.
It's very emotional. People are it's so deeply personal because it literally defines. There's this insight that is, you never build your house. Most people build their house for guests. Like, to show that when someone walks into the house, it should scream, it's Manvi's house, right? And it's a statement that they're making. It's a style statement for them. So it's incredibly important to them to for it to be perfect in whatever way that they think it is. And it's very, very emotional for them.
True.
That's so true.
And it's literally their life saving. They bought a house, and whatever the little bit left after buying that house is what they're investing on their interiors, like 10-15% of whatever they paid for the house. In most cases, that is how we look at it, and very, very critical decision.
Right.
And the thing is, you have one shot at making this customer happy. That's it. One shot and done.
Yeah.
So true.
You're never gonna get another chance. Uber fucks up once, it'll get 10 other chances. This customer is gone and done.
Yeah.
And if they become a champion of you, they become a champion. Otherwise, they become a detractor. That's it. There's no in
going
between.
back.
Yeah, and it's and max they come to you twice in the lifetime. Is there any? What are the cases of repeat?
Very, very
Very little, right?
I don't think we have.
Because you're also fairly young as a company.
Yeah,
so you
we're 10
wouldn't-
years.
right,
Yeah,
right.
we're 10 years.
It's fairly young in the space.
Fair,
Look
yeah,
at
yeah,
it.
yeah. So
Yeah.
in 10 years, I would imagine a customer only gets their house done
Yeah,
once.
exactly. Yeah, true.
Yeah.
And
Maybe
yeah,
this answer will be different in like say 25, 30
Exactly,
years.
exactly.
But at this point in time, I've had one customer that did 2 houses back to back.
Right.
And both of them were for them living their purposes. And I was like, this is in the span of 5 years. So very
Yeah.
rare, very
Yeah,
rare.
very rare.
But we've had customers that come back where they do their house and then they do houses to rent.
Right, fair.
Like
Got it.
that's the only but the requirement, what they do is so much lower than
Yeah.
what they initially came for, because when they want to live there and when they want to rent it is a little.
And
Right.
is there laddering that you have here, which is like top 1% and top 0.001% and things like that? Are you thinking from that perspective?
I think it's slightly different. You're not thinking top 1% because homes currently we're expanding from, like, say we started with say about 40-45 centers, retail experience centers. At this point we're going to be at 100 odd stores in another month or so, and this is all you say Guwahati, you say Ahmedabad, you say Lucknow, you say we're doing Nizamabad, and we're doing like what else, Vijayawada. Like we're seeping into like much larger.
So you are more looking at affordability rather than location and
Absolutely,
things like that.
yeah. We are built for middle class India.
Yeah.
We're
Makes
built
sense.
to give middle class India the dream that they can afford a designer and they can afford
Yeah.
a designer house, and that's who we are
Exactly.
for. We're not.
Yeah.
That's a very nice positioning.
Yeah,
to have.
it is.
Yeah.
Because I'm assuming the top 1% that you said would go to celebrity designers, or would probably get would operate with people who probably do boutique. I'm assuming because
That's only 0.001%
Yeah.
that will be able to
Is- okay,
afford.
yeah, fair.
Afford
Got it. That-
because
even
the
there, I think this-
the
yeah.
range is so big. Like we'll do it for someone that we do it for top 1% as well. We absolutely are for top 1% as well, but we're not possibly for someone that wants every inch of their house customized, and
Yeah.
and that comes with like money, like
Right.
real
Exactly.
like
Yeah.
grow, like people that boutique designers will be able to get you to spend even 1 crore on a room.
Right.
On a room.
Yeah. Very much. Yeah.
That's
For sure.
pretty much
Yeah.
for the designers. You're right.
Yeah.
So the positioning is for the middle class India.
It's to revolutionize the way that India lives, and true India is.
Fair. Same question to you also, because also I want to know healthcare. It's riddled with regulations. There's two sides to it. There's obviously a side of business reality and challenges which you face, and then there's the other side of how you're positioned for consumer, how consumer looks at it. I want to know both. How does that work, which we are not privy to.
So I think healthcare came into my life. I don't know how, but like it's
Most good things.
Yeah, exactly. And for some weird reason, I became so passionate about healthcare as an industry, because like this is a transaction which is very much a need based, and it's at the very lowest point of your life if you are in a healthcare consumer. Now, I'm not talking about preventive care. So let's put preventive care on the side right now, which is I'm fit, but I need to be fitter. But let's talk about more on the negative sides of, which is someone has gotten cancer,
Right.
or someone is actually sick today, right? So now you as a platform are there to live with them through their patient journey, and there is a entire framework that I call as patient journey, which is like how patient starts with symptoms, and then they go to, let's say, their friendly chemist that they always work with. Then they finally say, okay, now it's not fixable at home, it's not fixable by my chemist, I need to go to finally a doctor. They get a prescription, they buy medicines, they finally get to that route, right? So your brand is very much focused on trust, It's very much focused on being just available, not pushy, just being available. It's like your family, which is if you are sick, they are just available for you. They are not saying you to do things now. They are just saying, okay, if you need medicines, call me. If you need food, call me. So it's like you just need to be available. That's the right phrase I choose. Now imagine, like, if a healthcare marketer is not sensitive to this kind of conditions, they would be sending the worst push notifications in the history. So it could be like 20% off on chemo kits. Like, and imagine that going to a consumer which has no tendency or has no one in their home having
Yeah.
cancer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right? So this marketing of healthcare, and which is what I like, comes with the responsibility of the consumer.
Yeah.
I can't say, hey, do you want red tablet versus blue tablet? It's not fashion. I can't say, if you can, are you feeling sick? That can't be my copy to begin with. Like Zomato can say, are you hungry? I can't say, hey, are you sick? Why don't you, like, there are 10 ways to become sick. Like, there is no layering
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
Right? So it's driven by care, it's driven by trust, and it's driven by availability. And then on top of it, you add a layer of business fundamentals, which is your delivery timeline, or your genuineness of the medicines, your affordability of the pricing. So you kind of add those layers on top of it, and then that is like the healthcare model that works. From the consumer perspective, all they want is, and which goes back to my thing of negotiation and things, which is they want personalization. Like, if you don't have diabetes, you don't want a diabetes notification. Like, it's a very negative thing to get a diabetes notification or an emailer, or even an ad about how diabetes can like, how do you fix diabetes, or take these 5 supplements, and I'm fit, I don't have diabetes, like, don't push me. And your brand will have a very negative connotation towards you are trying to spread diseases,
Yeah.
let's say. Right? And I keep getting this question from a COVID perspective, which is, your business must be really, really growing in COVID, and you must be happy and things like that. No one in the healthcare company was happy to have COVID. Like, it's okay to have a good business, but everyone in the healthcare organization, specifically when I was in 1mg, like, I was in 1mg when COVID kind of came in, no one was focused on, like, transaction, revenue, business. Like, the conversation was around, okay, our delivery riders are not able to deliver medicines because of jurisdiction problems. How do we solve that? In the society groups, in those telegram groups of society, everyone kept referring to 1mg, which is, hey, you need medicine, call 1mg, go to 1mg's website. 1mg literally became a call center during that time. Literally, like, every employee of 1mg was literally a call center at that time. Like, for example, in my society, people knew I was at 1mg. They were calling me, and I'm calling my pharmacist partners, and we are going with them in the car to get those medicines for them. Nothing related to, like, go to platform, buy. Of course, there's a platform to scale. So healthcare marketing is really human focused. You can't be obnoxious about going viral. You can't be obnoxious about running campaigns, because, like, are just available. So some of the branding or marketing techniques that healthcare providers use is they create resources. So our COVID ebooks at 1mg were spread everywhere. Like, almost I would easily be able to see 60 to 70% of my network read the 1mg's COVID ebook without even me sending them that
Right.
ebook.
Yeah.
Because it was all about, like, people were asking basic questions like, can I eat non-vegetarian during COVID? So there is an ebook that just answers these basic questions. Nothing else. Taking the WHO guidelines, putting it into a consumable format, and they are just buying it,
Right.
or reading it, or consuming it, and then the trust of the platform increases.
Yeah.
So it's very long term, and the moment you try to push slightly harder on the pedal, the trust breaks.
Right.
Yeah.
So we have our own unique challenges.
Right.
Every healthcare has the same challenges,
Right.
but I love navigating them.
Right. You also worked on some global markets, right? How is that different from India?
So I think first of all, like let's start with population. So India begins with 140 crore, 146 crore right now. I think I was checking today morning. Italy basically is 6 crores. Then you go to Singapore, it's like 60 lakhs, right? So if the moment you move out of India, it's retention focused.
Right.
There's no more like you can't say, okay, I have run ads in Delhi, now I'll run in Bangalore, now I'll run in Mumbai, now I'll run somewhere else, but I'll keep
Endless. You can run a business for like 10 years just doing that.
exactly without having even a good retention.
Yeah.
Like if you do a good job at the payback period, you can still run a business in India for a long period of time because the good payback period pays your bills and you're sorted even while people hate your product. Flip to an international market, you don't have the luxury of acquiring consumers like this. So your entire focus flips towards the retention side, and you are now more talking on how do I retain customers, how do I increase their AOV, how do I get them to cross buy across different categories, and then there is acquisition. Which is okay. How much users are you? So my life flipped from acquiring like let's say 100k users monthly to let's say acquiring 20k users monthly, right? And now you have to work with that pool. So it's very much driven by
Right.
that. And then there are obviously human elements which are different, which is the way organizations work is very different. So in India we have a culture of let's say kind of always on,
Yeah.
and we try to be like sitting on our laptops even on weekends and things like that. But if you move to the other side of the world, weekends then are called as weekends for a reason. Like you don't actually, no one encourages that you spend time working over weekends. So there's this working culture that you also have to adapt to and learn. And then there is a fabric of financial or policy understanding. For example, GDPR is really, really big when it comes to European markets. And now I have done like now a mastery of that that law. I exactly know what privacy consent 1 means and what 2 means and what 3 means and how you can navigate those layers. India is right now, I think, still slightly more flexible when it comes to these areas, but of course we'll catch it up from that perspective.
Right.
So it's a combination of these problems that healthcare faces.
Right. Interesting. I have a follow-up question, slightly different, which is healthcare to me seems like a category where subscription could have been a big hit, right? Especially in an Indian market where I think people do have a lot of medication, especially the older generations. For some reason, it has not. I know there have been a lot of startups who have come in and tried, but it's not got as popular as it should be. Any reasons for that?
So I think it goes back to categories one is using to make subscriptions. It's very much category driven. So let me give you an example. So let's assume, and every one of us can go back to our experiences of consuming skincare products.
Right.
So generally, this is the life cycle of a skincare product. You develop a skin problem. Let's assume as small as baby rashes to slightly bigger than pimples on your face, let's say. You go to a dermatologist, they basically look at you, they give you the medicines. That course is generally 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, done. Your life cycle ends. So if you're trying to build a subscription business in a category which has a start and end date, it ain't gonna work until and unless you get to the wellness stage, which is you become my shampoo, you become my sunscreen and things like that. But if you do like medicines, it has a start and an end date. Whereas if you go back to diabetes, it doesn't
Chronic
have
conditions
Yeah,
have.
chronic conditions.
Yeah.
chronic conditions doesn't have
End date.
an end date to some extent. It's reversible, but like they generally don't have an end date.
Yeah.
There it can become slightly better, but then comes an element of how humans behave, which is they also try to switch between doctors, switch between plans. So our switching cost from a healthcare perspective is right now still very, very low. We are not very hesitant to switch doctors, to switch chemists, switch prescriptions. We are still very, very okay with that as a whole society. But until we don't have that stickability, and it goes back to a very good example at Singapore. Singapore's new healthcare policy, which is gonna be implemented, it's already live, like it's work in progress. They are trying to assign one doctor to one area or one region, and your ID, your healthcare ID is basically tagged to that doctor, and all the reports will come from that doctor, whether you are coming in, whether you are checking in, whether you are not checking, taking your medications or buying or everything. It's all connected to one ID.
Right.
Right now, there is, if you flip there to a different doctor, he's not going to accept you from an ID perspective.
Right.
He's going to say, okay, why are you here now? Because we have already assigned you a doctor in your region. So there, if you do things like these, which is your single ID from a healthcare perspective, just like you can either link it with Aadhaar or you can link it with whatever formats, that is where you will start seeing more subscription businesses win, because finally people will settle down and say, this is my healthcare journey. Today we don't know our healthcare journey, so we keep flipping.
Also, but I would like to say that no matter, even if that happened, people like a second opinion, especially
Yeah.
when it
Correct.
comes to
There are-
chronic
Correct.
illnesses.
Yeah.
Like a second opinion, third opinion, you want to build the conviction
Yes.
in the treatment, and that will always mean that, like, I remember within my family, like my dad had cancer, and we had a team of 3 different doctors plus one in the US, where we were always, and the doctors knew that we were talking to three different people, and sometimes they were also talking to each other, because they knew that we are not,
Correct.
like, for us, conviction building in whatever we're going to do is really important. So he probably used the same thing for about a year or 2 years, but I would have never subscribed, because I wanted the
Correct.
flexibility to be able to be like, we need to change it today, we'll change it today. Like,
Correct. And that is exactly why we do.
Yeah.
So it also goes back to the trust that either we have on our healthcare bodies of the country, or then it goes back to consumers as a whole, which is what Manvi is saying is absolutely right, which is I don't trust my healthcare ecosystem to that level,
Right.
where I would just blindly go with them. So I'm gonna be the smart one here rather than being the healthcare body is the smart one, which is the right way. With a serious condition like cancer, you're like, I'm gonna do my whole research and
Right.
forget the subscription doesn't fit when you are that level of issues at your place or with
Yeah.
your family members. You don't care about healthcare bodies or whatever. You are like, my woman needs to be fit and healthy.
yeah.
Right.
So that is where it is long short before subscription will finally work.
Right. I was just thinking, if you have chronic condition of, say, diabetes, and you're well into the journey of where you're consuming medicines on a regular basis, then I just thought maybe you want to then at that level optimize the purchase process, maybe. And I'm assuming with our country the numbers are so high because the population is there. So then maybe it makes sense to focus. I was just thinking that way.
Sorry, just the problem is that my dad had diabetes for 10 years again, and we have never once bought the same medicine for
Right.
more than 6 months or
Right.
8 months, because also your body sometimes develops resistance to a certain drug. You change it up, your dosage changes, you'll do your tests regularly based on how much your health fluctuates. Maybe your dosage will change. Maybe you'll only be on meds one day you'll start a combination of insulin and meds. Maybe one day you'll move only to insulin, and you need that kind of flexibility. Maybe for 5-6 months, short term subscriptions of 5-6 months could possibly work, and I think he should be in a position to tell us. But long term, more than 5-6 months.
This is exactly my consumer journey at my home as well. So my dad has diabetes, and he has diabetes from last 25 years almost. And we have to change every 6 months the insulin brand he takes, because body will build the right word, which is resistance. And there your dosage will also change. Like in the morning, some days he want 10 points. It's a point system in insulins.
Right.
So some day in the morning it's 10 points, in the evening it's 8, combining 18 points. But someday when he will check his diabetes on a glucometer, it is shot up for some weird reason, or maybe he has eaten outside or something. And next day he wants to now have a 14 pointer, and in the evening maybe a 10 pointer just to make it slightly heavier
Right.
on the body. So it's subscriptions in healthcare is slightly complex, but yes, it will work phenomenally well when it comes to the wellness, which is pre you have any disease. That is where it can still work. Like for example, proteins have worked for the longest time. Like people are taking whey proteins here and there all day long. It's they are not subscribed as such like subscribed Subway, but they are largely subscribed to their boxes. They'll quickly replenish the moment the first box is over, and they'll buy the next one, and they'll buy the next one. So they're all very connected to their wellness from that perspective. But as a middle class normal consumer, very tough.
Right. Got it. Interesting. I have to ask about AI because no podcast today is going to be complete without
You
that
can't be a
question.
podcast bro without
Exactly.
AI.
100%. Right. So what I always ask is, what have you started doing with AI that has made things better? And have you seen something that is truly revolutionary where you thought, oh, this could change the game?
Okay. So I got vested into the AI as a topic, mainly not from a consumer lens. So I made this conscious call saying I would not be a consumer of AI, but I would be a part of the development of AI, or like actually using behind the scenes of it. So for example, just to give you an example, like Midjourney is a very consumer focused tool. It is built for the masses. Anybody can go there and build images that they need, but it is not good to make your images, right? So I went deeper into, let's say, comfy UI workflows. If you see my LinkedIn, I have posted, I think a month back or so, 3 of my photos which are completely AI generated, and I have sent it to almost everyone I know. Not one of them has even evaluated this as AI. And last night I was having a dinner with someone. I was like, and he was like, Harneet, I know you have written it is AI generated. It's not. And he's pressurizing me of saying it is not AI. I'm like, it is AI. It's built from comfy. I don't own even those clothes. I've not been to those locations. So I moved away from consumer led workflows and try to build my own. So now for example, like as a practitioner as well, now I know how to build a virtual try on workflow myself, which is I can take your photos and things. I can train a Flux LoRa with your images. So I would need, let's assume, 50 images of you in different years with different body proportions and different emotions. And I can train a Flux LoRa in like 3 to 4 hours to create you. And then using those Flux LoRa's in platforms like, let's say, 11 Labs to even train your audio, and then combining them all together to make a thing. Ayushman Khurana, if you see, has recently launched a song which is all AI created, right? So I have moved away from being that consumer of AI to actually seeing my own use cases, and those use cases are helping me finally learn how to use it. I now use it for coloring projects. So if, let's say, there is a creative which is black and white, and I want to see what kind of colors will look good on it, I no longer go to my designer and say, give me like 20 different shades of this, which will take them like 2 weeks to even build that. So now what I do is we have a workflow in Comfy UI, which is we just take a picture of the color segment. So let's assume if I take a picture right now, it would be black, it would be brown, it would be white, and then we'll upload that to Comfy UI, which they will read it as, okay, they need brown, black, and white color combinations, and they will fill it up. So I'm starting to do these small experiments while still learning what AI actually means. But I'm kind of away from consumer-led tools a lot because they will not serve brands.
Right. Very interesting.
How do you use it?
Me? I'm right now just focusing on optimization of time. So I'm just looking at from my lens and seeing what all do I spend a day in, and then how do I do it faster. So my position also is unique because I have to spend time with so many different departments and people. So and I want to do all of it, and I want to do justice to it. So I spend and I'm tinkering with it. Like for example, one of the things I did is I pulled out our financials of the last 5 years from Zoho, which we use for backend, entered that into GPT, and then I could do this manually also, but it would take me a little longer. And asked it to give me patterns across 5 years of when new clients have entered the system in the books, when have been the upticks, which I typically know is OND in revenue at least. And I asked for similar things, and I also did people related data that way to understand patterns. It gives you some sense of understanding of information, like which I already knew, but I get it faster, right? For example, we don't typically onboard new clients in November to Feb. For whatever reason, it never happens. It's always after or before. It's also the trend in our industry. So it's not new, but I have validation that my gut feeling is also right with the data. So now I'm getting more confidence. One thing that's really changed for us is we hardly spend time on making decks, which is a very, very small thing. But in our line of work, you spend an enormous amount of time to craft a beautiful looking deck that you need to present to your marketing partners, which you're not doing anymore. So all of that has got automated. So if you have a good strategic discussion with your key leaders in the team for what we need to do, either for a new client acquisition or to develop a campaign, we know clearly what we want, then the output is very, very easily available in a matter of few hours. So that's something that huge change. Like we were just talking about it recently, where myself and the head of strategy, we had a new business conversation, and they said, listen, we don't want to see any creative thing, but tell us what you can do for the brand. We put together a good 30-slide deck between the two of us as an outcome of a 2-hour conversation. And on the back of that, we were able to close that business, which you could have never done maybe 2-3 years ago.
Right.
That's a huge change. And as a function, I feel you just need lesser people. I have this saying, which I casually throw around. I said, a lot more people will go back to farming, right? From our industry. I keep saying that. And it's a reality because like we were talking about the supply and demand issue, right, in our field, which is slowly getting solved because less people can do more meaningful work faster. So I'm purely there right now. As an extension, we're figuring out small hacks. Like we built something on GPT which can optimize for performance creatives. So you have a structure, we have a certain formula that we use, which we have sort of developed over the last year. We sort of now feed that in with variations of the problems and how we want, and it automatically gives us enough scripts that we can use. That then gets optimized for channels. Sometimes on visual, I still think it's not there yet. I think basic stuff gets done. Like for example, we have a client from a fashion brand. We have limited assets. Now duplicating the assets for variations has become very easy. So that has become that's taken enormous amount of time away from, say, designers and art directors, which otherwise would have been not possible to. So we are today only, as a rule of thumb, optimizing for efficiency. So that's level one. So if you get that done, then I think you can do larger things later. But I have a lot of plans and ideas in what we can do. I think a game changer would be a centralized AI that learns from every department at once. Today, that's not there. We have AI that is individually used by departments. So linearly, it's working, but it's not working horizontally. That would be a game changer. So if we can solve for that, no doubt. At the same time, I think orientation of team is becoming easier and faster because you're able to give them a framework of a playbook. Then they go and tinker around with it. So they learn faster. So the juniors today, in the last 12 months, I think are learning faster than juniors of the last 3 years. So that is the sort of change that I'm seeing. And I'm very obsessed about two things. One is I do for personal stuff. Like personally, I think like so I started doing emails with that, right? So I can't always write emails because it takes a lot of time. So sometimes, so if people know me, I respond with one words on email. So someone says something, I say, okay, on board, done, let's do. Like I'm like that. So sometimes you need to draft longer emails. It really helps. So I'm there right now. Like I'm using stuff for all that. And like at times I also do back and forth with family. Sometimes I don't want to have long conversation. I copy paste the entire text. I've created a project called Family, and they do back and forths with. So they're talking
I'm very interested. This is very interesting. Go on. Tell us an instance you did this. This is very interesting.
So we were deciding on something to purchase at home. And I was disagreeing with my sister's opinion, and I needed to put some points across. I don't have time to research and like make a case for something.
This is the beauty of AI.
So I did that. I also used this for a client once, for a client in the Middle East, but a Russian. and she figured that my email was AI enhanced,
It's,
and she called me out because she thought it was unethical. So I had to apologize and tell her that from the culture that we come from, it's acceptable, and she didn't buy it. So she was extremely upset with me for a long duration of time.
I have a
But this
scenario.
happened in 2023, early 2023.
Very-
No, late 2023, early 2024.
Very early though.
Yeah, so maybe that's the reason.
Yeah.
But that was a shocker.
No, I have a scenario here. So this happened with me, which is a new team member kind of joined our team, and they were looking to get their laptop upgraded to a higher version, and they had to ping me for that for some weird reason, which is like up for approvals and all that. And I get this Slack message, which is like, "Hello, Harneet. Due to my productivity, some things, I would like my laptop to be upgraded to this version. This would really help me save time, work hours, build better quality." And it's like a nicely crafted long thing. And I remember I replied to them, "It is approved. Next time, write yourself." because I don't want my team to basically structure the conversations to this level
Yeah.
where they actually stop telling me what they actually mean.
Yeah, like this is like I just need a laptop upgrade.
Exactly.
Yeah, please, can I get it?
Exactly.
Yeah. But I get it. That's happening a lot. And this, I was talking about this with somebody where even on performance marketing today, a lot of the groundwork that marketers did 10 years ago on dashboard today is optimized.
Correct.
Right? As a function, and what I asked this person is that, I asked them, do you think that the today's marketers who are coming in and using AI are as hardcore and street bred as we were 10 years ago, because we had to manually do everything, right? And he was saying that it's changed, and now going forward nobody will ever need to do it, because so many things on the dashboard and platform has now been optimized for. So I do think in the future, like Meta is talking about how they're going to enable where a brand can just directly come to Meta and tells Meta what they want, and Meta will give it end to end, be it video, be it audio, be it any form of solutions from a communication standpoint. So I do think that's the future, by the way. Like, that's how it's going to go.
I think in my household we have a third person living with us. We don't live without ChatGPT. ChatGPT lives with us. We talk to it for all decisions. We talk to it to resolve fights. We talk to it to resolve purchase decisions. We talk to it to what we want to eat.
Yeah.
ChatGPT lives with us. But besides that, from a work perspective, I think something that's happened only over the last 2 weeks very effectively is we found this tool called Ideogram, and it does renders only. Like the job of the tool is to make renders, not images, but renders, like home renders and stuff. And I think very critical to our business, and it's able to do it very realistically. Like if you made a render on DALL-E we've made renders and we've said make ocean themed render, we've said made forest themed, and the idea is to make it look AI generated.
Right.
So we're very happy to be doing that. But like when you want something realistic, like I was actually a little taken aback when ChatGPT created a customer testimonial image of a customer standing in their kitchen, and it's so Indian looking, so real. And I was like, listen, we're not using that. That is a bit much, but so realistic. And I think that is one where we've had to employ like Ukrainian agencies, Indian agencies just to do render work for us, and it's incredibly tedious and time consuming. And I think this solves so much for us from a business POV. Second is, I think the team itself, brief understanding, it just improves a lot of efficiency. Briefing, brief understanding, and brainstorming in these 3 sections. And in terms of developing personas, like we have a persona for Quora, we have a persona for blog, we have a persona for social. They're all different personas of the same brand, right? So I think just feeding that in and then using it to brainstorm helps the team immensely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, and it's able to write too. Like,
Yeah.
I think writing is just...
No, just to add to that, this is the least number of writers we have had in the team ever in our agency. For a 45-member team, we have 5 writers.
You know, it scares me so much because, like, we've been discussing that you need good muscle to be able to be good at your job. And if we stop employing junior writers, how will they ever become good senior writers?
Yeah.
It worries me because not from a perspective that I'm a writer, but just tomorrow if I had to hire a writer, how do I ensure that they are? You can't do it unless you're, writing and someone's giving you feedback every day on those 20 lines.
Yeah.
How are you going to become good?
Yeah.
And if we stop employing them, what is going to happen? Okay, sorry for getting existential, but the point that you wanted to make.
So the point is, I think social proof, just like any other tactic, is gonna go out of the window very soon. Because what happens is brands recognize these new tactics, and then consumers catch on.
Yeah.
So today, testimonials and social proofs and all the videos of customers, as you were saying, standing in the kitchen or doing whatever, is gonna work for certain amount of time until consumers will realize, okay, we don't have to look at social proof anymore and testimonials anymore. And customers always educate themselves to be ahead of the brand. There's always a lag of few years, but consumers always catch on.
Right.
And then brands have to evolve it further.
Absolutely.
So all the things in AI which are working today,
Not work.
I honestly believe it's not going to work in the next few years.
Yeah.
Will AI work? Of course, but the way brands are using AI is only going to work for short term. Then consumers will catch on, and then we have to find a new way to do AI.
Absolutely. On that note, right now in our line of work, at least in performance and a little bit bleeding into social, UGCs have become a huge thing, right? User-generated content. It's actually actor-generated, not really user, because you're staging it. And that's become the number one clutter-breaking format of creative for performance marketing on Meta.
Absolutely.
Like I was at a Meta summit late last year, where the entire crux of that summit was about how Meta is now creator first platform, and that's the same thing that you were talking about, where a brand also needs to now sound like a creator. I genuinely feel that saturation point is going to be hit somewhere by the end of this year, early next year, because invariably what's happening is everybody's looking and feeling and talking the same.
Correct.
Right? Everyone's because you stop because whatever, there's a 3-second hook and 7-second hook, and there's a whole lot of science attached to this thing now.
Yeah.
But the reality is, it's at the end of the day, it's all starting to look and feel the same.
Yeah.
And as a result, it's not now going to move the needle.
Yeah.
So I agree with you. So a trend will come, marketers will milk it and ruin it, and then a new trend will need to be created.
It's the way of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And you always go back to then again the consumer behavior and the human psychology thing, which is 4 P's of marketing and 7 P's of marketing. You will always go back to it.
Correct.
So all these things that keep on coming, may it be was laptops or mobiles. Marketers were using out-of-home advertising. Laptops came in, we started using digital advertising. Social media came in, we started using social marketing. AI is coming, we have started using AI. So I believe like there's not so much to worry from, like the level of worry I see everywhere. I think it's just like a normal transition of the world, which is a new technology is coming in.
Yeah.
And if you become a master of it, it will become exactly like what social did and what out of home did and what digital did and what this. And then you will move on to the next thing. Right. Yes, it is slightly scarier than the other things, yes.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, like consumers will catch on.
It's a very interesting perspective. Not enough people speak this way, because now it's almost a doomsday narrative. Oh, you don't do AI, you're doomed. Like it's almost like that, right? From especially young, say, agencies or brands who haven't found their specialization yet, and marketers, because they're sort of hopping from trend to trend, and they think AI is the be all and end all of it. But what you said is so true. If everybody has that tool, everybody has the same access to prompts, then outcome, how much is going to change?
Yeah. So imagine, like I told you about the Flux Laura I trained on my face. Now, how long is it that influencers will not catch to that workflow? It's like few months in there. Assuming every influencer now uses that workflow, none of the images that you see from your influencer now is true.
Yeah.
Right? So, and the consumers love influencers for their human side.
Yeah.
And then consumers will catch on. And then you will see the influencers kind of tanking in, and new influencers will come in who will say we are more human.
Correct.
Right? So it's always this, if you see, I always say this, if you see history from a long period of time, you will see this tapering approach. And if you understand history a little bit, you will be more calmer, more smoother, and you'll be like, okay, this is one revolution, like industrial revolution, and then technological revolution, and this is AI revolution, and it's not gonna be end of the world. Like
But no, it's definitely here to stay, and you definitely have to learn it. Like
Correct.
there is
Yeah.
there is no two ways about. You definitely have to know it, learn it to stay. Even if it sticks around only for like say 3, 4, 5
Yeah,
years,
correct.
you still need to know it
100%.
really well for the next 3, 4, 5 years, and you have to keep evolving on how to use it as it evolves.
Right.
Yeah.
You can't not.
Is it going to be as bigger rather than the shift we had from traditional to digital advertising versus use now from there to AI?
More from you start with digital marketing, social came, and social is here to stay. AI is here to stay.
Got
It's
it.
not going, but it's just how you use it will consistently evolve because absolutely nobody understands or knows what it can do. Every day there's a new use case.
Yeah.
There's a new, like, if you leave it with the people will figure out what it can do. And I think that's
Yeah.
that's the phase it is in today.
Yeah.
I think the line I always use is AI is still gonna be used to figure out how to sell more stuff to humans, which is what brands have been going for a long time. Like imagine like people move to digital websites and we are now saying websites will be developed by AI. Who would be consuming it?
Yeah.
It's gonna be humans, right?
Yeah.
So it's a paranoid situation where we are feeling like okay, humans will not even interact with each other ever.
No,
Like
they have to.
exactly, and any brands even if they pick, they're only gonna use it to do the same things that they did manually. From a job perspective, yes, it is a concern. People have to learn it. I 100% agree with Manvi. People have to learn it, but like from a brand consumer lifelong perspective, like it's a revolution.
Right.
Absolutely. I think it'll be a tool just like everything else. Today it feels like it's more than a tool.
Yeah.
But it's just a tool.
Yeah, absolutely.
Looks like we both are positive.
Yeah.
All are positive people.
No,
here.
I am. In fact, people keep saying, I've now it's going to be one person agency. This that. Then I'm like, you're benching it on the fact that one person has all the human decision making ability to tell the AI what to do.
And that they're never going to fall sick and that they're
Yeah.
never going to they're going to be at prime performance every single day of
Exactly.
their lives. They're never going to have like emotional.
Exactly. Right.
Yeah.
But which also goes back to the financial conversation.
Yeah.
Today these tools are cheap.
Yeah.
So imagine you are running one person agency. I'm sure ChatGPT is not going to charge you 200 euros or $200 per month.
Yeah.
It's going to start catching up. So
Yeah,
it's all
absolutely.
human capital or resource capital cost. Today it's cheaper, hence you are replacing humans with it. The moment the cost starts increasing, you will start going back to and you're like, man, my guy was like 30K a month.
Yeah.
And this tool has
precisely.
started to become
Absolutely.
50K now.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And
Yeah.
it's like, okay, let me go back to it. And it goes
Yeah.
back to AWS and all these cloud servers.
All
like
of it.
all these large brands still have their own servers with them because they are like, okay, it's an external thing.
Yeah.
Same thing is going to happen with these
True.
tools.
Very true. And that's again something people don't speak about because you have to have experienced the world in all of these shapes and forms for you to actually know what that trend is going to be. If you're isolated to just solving client brief manually and you've been struggling and now you're optimizing for that with ChatGPT, you will look at that world from that isolation. So I agree. Absolutely. I don't think there's a possibility of taking out human capital from any of these scenarios, at least in marketing. No way.
Yeah, and that is exactly why I started moving away from consumer facing tools, as I said earlier, to actually trying to figure out how AI actually works behind the scenes, trying to optimize that. Because there would be new technological evolution. The cost can increase like tomorrow substantially. But if you know the workings of it, you can always go back to and fix this.
No, but I do just the human capital point. I think there are some places AI will eat people for lunch.
Of course.
Like
Yeah.
there is
Of course.
Yeah.
like some stuff like call centers, some stuff like writing, simpler things. You would need you are someone sitting in someone that doesn't have a very good background in English. Like they don't know how to speak it very well. They come from a tier 3, tier 4 kind of a city. it literally immediately enables them to get 30-40K in a big city if they know just how to use that versus someone that doesn't know how to use that.
Right.
That's simple, like as simple as that. So I think AI enabled people and AI itself will definitely change how the job market is today. It just may not be doomsday the way that we talk about it, but it will definitely. And like all things do, like social as a role did not exist. Like now there are
Yeah.
social teams in
Yeah.
orgs.
Yeah,
So I
yeah.
think just as all things do, and I think that comes from having seen some amount of evolution. The security comes from that. I don't think that everybody has seen enough to live with that insecurity of okay, what's going to
Yeah,
happen,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like and they're barely at the starting point of their careers, 2-3 years, and they're like, oh my god, yes, going to take my job. Like it's fair concern.
Do you remember we were asking a question a few years back, which is what will out of home marketers do?
I think they're back in now. They're
Exactly.
because now I feel the trend is that people do want to get out and experience things.
Yeah,
Correct.
they're
So-
absolutely back in.
Yeah,
Exactly.
offline is coming
100%.
back. I think the only thing they need to work on is how you link it back to some form of digital storytelling.
Correct.
Yeah.
If you do that, it's gold. Like
Correct.
Exactly.
the amount of brands today who are coming and saying, I have X amount of budget from my Facebook ads that I want to take out and put for offline.
Literally,
is
that's a
growing.
conversation.
That's a
Yeah.
conversation.
It
yes.
is. So I think that's a place that there are a lot of opportunities for people to innovate on.
Exactly.
There are cycles for everything, and
Yeah.
no channels disappearing. That's not.
Yeah. So what will the CMO role or head of brand, head of performance role start to look like in 5 years? What are your predictions?
Are you asking this from an AI perspective?
Overall
No,
perspective.
general. Okay. fine.
What would you do on your, like, what would the job look like?
I'll let you go first. I'm thinking about it actually. I don't think it's going to look any different, honestly. If I'm very honest, you're still supposed to do what you're doing today. How it will change is how you enable your teams to get the job done.
Right.
I think that will become very critical if you look at it from an AI perspective. But I do think that gig work is starting to become more in trend for smaller businesses. Like large orgs might still have people sitting at the top and not move out for like continuity to know like exactly what's happened like in the last 3 years, what's going to happen in the next 3 years. But I think for smaller orgs, the people that they hire are going to become more gig based, even in leadership roles, because consultants will absolutely be able to do more. And yeah, I think that's not a very concrete thought process.
But that still makes sense. I think you are right in terms of assessment. I feel marketing would slightly start going back to its roots again. Creativity probably would start having a chair once more.
Yeah, judgment, taste.
Judgment, taste, grace, if I may use that word, is going to start coming back up again in the boardrooms, because large brands, and I don't want to name any brands, but large brands have started to realize when they moved away from communication to just digital, it did not work out really well
Yeah.
from a long-term perspective.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And hence they have started pouring money back into the creative communication, out of home, if you want to use that word, like the proper communication elements.
Right.
I think mid-scale brands are also starting to realize. Consumer insights folks are starting to finally get a little larger table as well, which is okay, what do consumers want? Along with that, I think it's gonna go to a point where you have to marry a lot more now the founder-led or the CEO-led or the board-led view. You can't just have any more a singular marketer's view about your life. You have to always see it from a P&L lens, which a lot of marketers today are kind of staying away from. But I think they definitely have to go back to the P&L conversation. So marrying creativity with data and trying to be the next CEO, let's say, is the right way to be the right CMO. If you can talk and have the same conversation as your CEO while go back to your team and still be that marketer, I think that's the sweet spot for a CMO in the next few years.
I just to add, if you want to do brand, you have to know content marketing. You can't do content marketing today. You can't grow a brand without understanding very, very deeply what content marketing looks like. You can specialize in channels. You can specialize in email, WhatsApp. You can specialize in Instagram. You can specialize in out of home. That's fine. But you have to understand content and storytelling if you want to do brand very deeply.
Yeah. So the attributes will go back to what she's saying,
Yeah.
like creativity, storytelling, content, communication, and all those things. Rather than today, it's mainly led by data, attribution, analytics, and all those things. I think we messed up on the way a little bit, which is we got this shiny object called data,
Right.
and we loved it, which is good, which is finally you can measure what you are doing.
Yeah.
But I think we have touched that tipping point of over measuring, and like how do you even prove the trust of a consumer in a
Right.
spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Right. But the practice won't change, right? You're still going to, because it's become a habit now. So you're still going to obsess over data and take it all in.
Yes.
Maybe just the output of what you do with the data needs to come through a layer of, like you said, taste, judgment, grace, all these other instinctive decision making capabilities.
Yeah, or like there would be a, let's say data is the destination, and Google Maps is basically your tactics and strategies. So you would still get to the destination, which is you. At the end, you are running a business. Business is a business. Like,
Right.
you need to make money. You need to grow. You have investors. You have share market. You have answerable to all those people who are actually putting in money. So I think data would still be there, and the way to reach data would be slightly longer. I think no more an acquisition guy would have a KPI like, okay, if your campaign is not working in 15 days, we'll kill it. I think we'll have that tipping point of, okay, don't worry, it's if it is not generating leads, but it is generating interest, top of the funnel, and then one day it will start tipping down to the bottom of the funnel as well.
So how do you develop this side of your brain or your marketing capability? This decision making side of yours. How does one improve on that? I don't have an answer apart from saying do more and figure.
Yeah, that would be my answer. My answer is to you can't trust your instinct without having tested it. Like there is no way you can trust yourself without having tested it, and you can only test it when you're doing
Yeah.
things. So I don't think there's a formula to build decision making capabilities. That can only come from doing enough.
Yeah, it's a tough one. It's a really
I
a
don't
tough
think
one.
I don't think this room has the answer for it.
Has the
Karan.
answers for it. It's a really
Maybe
tough one.
tell us if you find out from another podcast.
Sure, I will.
But yes, of course. I think having conversations with different set of people definitely helps evolve that, because then you will meet people from different, let's say, countries or organizations or locations, and they will come with different belief systems. And then you will have to navigate those belief systems, and that is how you build your, just like you how you build your social capabilities. Like when you were born, you did not have any social interaction capabilities, but over time we have learned things like respect, ensuring everyone has their own time, listening to opinions, and all those things. So you kind of learn it over time from society. I think decision making is exactly like this, and she's right, which is only time can solve it. And when time can solve it, so you need to put in the long hours, you need to be in more meetings, you also need to have more ears, which is listen to others' opinion and understand why there is a difference in terms of our gaps.
Right.
And then that will, but it's decades again.
Right.
Yeah, no, there is no way except.
So I have one last question, which is if any young marketers watching this who aspires to become a head of brand, head of a CMO, or even go beyond to maybe become what would be in the future, maybe in 10 years from now, a very AI enabled CMO, let's call it that. What do you think they should do from a learning perspective? What has helped you? If you were to point out maybe 1-2 things they can do at the start of their journey.
I would imagine.
Apart from work in an agency, which
Yeah,
I think
which
we
we
should-
already established. Yeah, which is what I was thinking. I'm like, we already established this, Anand. But I think it really, truly helps for you to be a little bit obsessed with whatever you're doing. Whichever opportunity you get, if you're a little bit leaning towards, okay, I'm hungry to know more and I'm hungry to find out how to do this the best way possible, I think it really helps. That's what helped me.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if it's not prescriptive, but I would say that hunger has always propelled me forward.
Right.
I would split my learning into two aspects. One aspect would be the platforms, the tools, the things, which is like what I actually do when I open the laptop, which is how ChatGPT works, how Instagram works, how Facebook works, and how advertising works, and things like that. And I would really focus 50% of my time in understanding humans back, consumer decision making. I'm like super big on that topic by default because I know they have provided me disproportionate results in terms of conversations and while doing marketing as well. I would spend 50% of my time with consumers, like either reading consumer behavior, consumer decision making, how behaviors are shaped, how habits are built, and things like that.
Right.
What do you do?
What I've done and what I tell people is, of course, have one or two sources for learning, which helps. But I'm a big fan of history. I feel history always repeats. So if you go and watch the first ever TV ad, it sounds like a radio ad. It looks like a print ad. It's a combination of the two because humans are creatures of habit. We took a reference from before and we made it, which is why the first set of social ads all were display ads. Right, they
Correct,
look like
yeah.
that because that's from where it comes.
Yeah.
And before that, I think display ads probably would look like thumbnails of newsletters and stuff like that. Right, they all bleed into one after the other. So I would always say go back to the source material of a medium and look back at the evolution. It makes a huge difference, and you will see that we have moved from text to what do you call long form text to short form text to then statics to now dynamic, and now it's becoming shorter in the video. If you look at it, that's just been the trend. So you will always learn what's next by looking at what was working before. So that I think has really helped me in the sense of just understanding in general as to how humans behave. I sort of apply that same principle in anything I do. So anything you want to learn, even today AI, I'm going back and looking what is the reaction when search first came in, what
Yeah.
people thought would happen,
Yeah.
social first came in, what people thought would happen, etc., etc.
Big thing.
Yeah. So and to be very honest, I think to get a break in marketing, often it is if you know what the next best thing is, you get a break in your career.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
marketing,
That's
we're
true.
always looking at the next,
Yeah.
right? So that sort of helps. So I always sort of do that and I look back at what's worked. That sort of helps, I feel.
Yeah, and we look at next because consumers catch on.
Correct.
And that is where the hunger is the problem, which is consumers always catch on and the marketers are in that rat race of what's
Yeah.
next.
I'm a big fan of the book Brand Gap, and it talks about when everyone zigs, you zag. I
Yeah.
think that is
That's
what
it,
our
yeah.
field is all about.
Yeah.
Literally.
So we were obsessed with data for 10 years. Creativity is back. We will go back to data again after
In a
10
couple of
years.
years, yeah.
100%.
Yeah. That's how I live.
That's true.
Yeah. Great. I hope we can do more of these. Hopefully when you're in town or with, I think access to you is a lot easier. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for having us here. I know
Thank
it's a privilege.
Yes.
And yeah, thank you so much
Yeah.
for doing it.
Great.
Thank you.